Greetings! Welcome back once again. This is Imuna Yisrael, affectionately known as the First Lady for Debate Talk for You. We appreciate all the listeners, male and female, who support the Relationship Challenge and our newest edition and sister show, Under the Palm, Hebrew Women Speak. So sisters, if you have something to share or desire to be featured on the Debate Talk for You platform, please send all requests to underthepalm2@gmail.com. Once again, ladies, that's underthepalm2@gmail.com. We appreciate you and hope to hear from you soon. Peace and greetings to you. This is Imuna Yisrael, affectionately known as the First Lady of Debate Talk for You. I have enjoyed coming to you week after week, season after season, growing together, speaking about the difficult topics, investing the energy, time, and effort with our brothers and sisters on the panel. Today, I would like to come to you with an opportunity for you to invest in something that I've been working on and that's near and dear to me. It's called the Yummy Cottage. You can learn more about it at www.gofundme.com/the Yummy Cottage. We're currently fundraising so that we can get it off the ground, and your help would be appreciated. Once again, www.gofundme.com/the Yummy Cottage. Check the link in the box and hope to hear from you soon.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio.
Shalom and welcome to the 12th episode of Under the Palm, Hebrew Women Speak. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. We want to talk to you about the state of marriage in our community. Is marriage still sacred, or is every man doing whatever is right in his or her own eyes? This episode came about due to a conversation that I had with Sister Only Love after she sent a video to me that followed the story of a woman who found herself divorced via text message. This text message read, "Talak, talak, talak." This triple talak meant that she was now divorced according to a specific segment of the Muslim community. Whatever prompted this outburst subsided, and suddenly, filled with remorse, the man wanted his wife back. However, in order to do this, the estranged wife needed to be taken by another man first, through a process called halala, before she could become eligible for return to her marriage. This is a process that is not sanctioned by the mainstream Muslims, but is accepted in a certain fringe community base, with even imams colluding with men to offer their, quote, services to women anxious to avoid the stigma of divorce and return to their husbands. Interestingly enough, these people that will charge, these are men that will charge the woman to sleep with the women for a fee, sometimes upward of $1,400. They will sell their sexual activities with the woman and then divorce her after some time, and then at that point she can go back to her husband's. Now, Hebrews who are listening in and are studied in Torah would immediately pick up on what would be considered a corruption of the divorce law found in Deuteronomy, and a disturbing sense of exploitation for these women who are desiring nothing more than to follow the customs they believe their religion affords them, and are clearly the victims of some pretty shady dealings on the part of all of the men involved, from the one that thought that it was enough to simply lock her out of her covenant, and then the men who are exploiting the desperation of these women trying to reconcile with their legal, legitimate husbands. Tonight we will discuss the ways that marriage and divorce are understood, practiced, prohibited, and taught in our community, and the ways that men and women may have manipulated doctrines to exploit or trap each other. My name is Mayana Hassel-Ferret, and I will be your host this evening. Let me turn you over to our panel and have them introduce themselves. We'll begin with Only Love. Only Love, since you're the one that brought this topic to the table, introduce yourselves to the people.
Shalom, everyone. This is Only Love Chica from Prophetic Whirlwind, and I live here in New York, like Sister Mayana, and I was watching various documentaries concerning foreign countries and their wedding customs, and I came across this documentary and automatically recognized kind of a remix or a slight using of a Torah principle as far as marriage and remarriage, but then women being exploited, and wasn't really judging, the Muslim community, but more so was looking at my own Hebrew community for ways in which we're kind of creating these various marriage doctrines. So I'm excited about the show tonight and really appreciate all of you ladies for standing with me in prayer recently. Really appreciated that.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We're very excited that you were able to feel well enough to join us this evening. We're very grateful that you're here to participate in this conversation. Hallelujah. All praises to the Most High. I know that Amun is in the building. I'm going to say hello to the people.
Ooh, can I be heard?
Yes, you can be heard.
Oh,
the mic is yours.
All right, all praise be to the Most High, the Holy One of Creation. I give thanks for this opportunity to have this conversation. Sister Mina did send me over the video. I could not help. I shared it. It's good when these things come across so that we can examine them, and that's just the only love say, really see whether or not we're adopting some of these erroneous practices. Because, we're going to get into it, but I look forward to the conversation.
That's right. We always, we away from those uncomfortable spaces. This is something that's incredibly important. The relationship, what's affecting the men, the women, the children, and the families. These are very, very important conversations, especially for returning people who are trying to reclaim, rebuild, and restore healthy unions. And so when we see that there are so many things happening outside and even inside our communities that will jeopardize these kind of healthy unions, and we need to protect our covenants. And it's not just the Muslim community, as Only Love said. We're not pointing any fingers at the Muslim community. What was the reason why I started? I'll speak for myself. The reason that I started off by sharing that tale is because there's something there was a nugget in it. Like, the first thing that I saw is like, okay, that looks like what Deuteronomy says about our divorce rituals or our divorce traditions turned on its head. And that this is very clearly that the woman felt that she had to participate in these traditions or these customs or this kind of doctrine because the people around her were participating in it. In the documentary, there's someone who goes and speaks with the people who are the religious leaders of this particular community, and the first thing the people that are studied in the religion are able to say is that this is absolutely wrong. This is not what our religion is about. This is not what we do. That fact didn't change the reality that there was an actual money-making group of men who had found a way to exploit this corruption of a doctrine within a religious context. There's a perversion of what's written for them to follow according to what they understand their Elohim to desire them to do. And so that's not something that we can say is completely absent in our community. It may not look like that, but it does rear its head in a number of other forms. And so that is why we're introducing it that way. And just so we can now reflect. The reason we look at others is so we can go and have introspection, not so that we can point our fingers at them. This is That's what I would say is a healthy mentality. We have our own maladaptive behaviors, and rather than spend all day talking about other people, we fix ourselves. Hashtag fix yourself. So we're going to look at quite a few, quite different ways that marriage is approached, the ways that maybe because we have such loose criteria for covenant making that we are very quick to dissolve our marriages. We look for, when can I divorce? Can I divorce? She can't divorce. I'm going to divorce. So what does the Torah say? Or, the New Testament says something different. In fact, for those of you who don't know, TRC was on Monday. We ran a replay that asked, very specifically, did the New Testament Messiah change the laws of divorce? I'll have Amuna clarify that title. But I believe that we have Malaka with us. So without further ado, Malaka, take the mic and introduce yourself to the people.
Oh, all praises to the Holy One of Israel, and shalom to the Mishpachah, to all those who are listening, to the sisters on the panel, and to the imams, if the imams are on. I'm so sorry that I'm just now joining you, but I'm so happy that I made it. Sometimes it feels like a race to get here, and so I got here. Hallelujah. And I'm just looking forward to the discussion. I don't know where you guys are at yet, so I won't say too much. I'm just looking forward to really giving a good look at our marriages community. There are some things that I find in dealing with my adult daughters and their perception of marriage and relationships, and I find the same thing among some of the sisters in our community, and some interesting thoughts from the brothers as well. So I'm just looking forward to sharing, but also looking forward to listening and hearing what the people have to say. So with that, I'll yield to my sister. Shalom, sis.
Shalom, great job. We actually haven't gone too far at all. We're just about to dig into the meat of the matter, in a manner of speaking. I don't believe the imams are here yet, but when they are, we will, of course, yield the floor to the elders and allow them to participate and give their insights. I know the Imam Yehudi did contact me and let me know that she would not be available, but I do know that Imam Naomi already has her opinions on this and will likely be calling in during the course of the conversation. So let's jump right into it. There's a number of different ways that we can look at this. Like we could talk about how marriages are understood through by different people in our community. I won't even give you the list. Let's talk about that. Amuna, what kind of marriage constructions are you familiar with? Anything that might be problematic that you may have come into contact with? What are our opinions? What opinions about marriage construction have you come into contact with in your time studying the culture?
Sister Mayana, that's a trick question. No, we've done a number of shows exploring some of the issues, some of the things that come about. One of them is, you're in Babylon, you don't need any papers, you don't need any ketubah, that's Jewish, that's unlawful, that's all of these things surrounding no witnesses, these things that make marriage a light matter, let me say. You don't have to talk to your parents. You don't need any permission. This type of thing. Adjusting the fact that you're not a virgin, all of these things, and I'm probably taking everybody's examples, but because we've been doing this for so long, all of these things come up where not exactly like the Islamic situation in the video, but very similar in how do we tweak this, and each individual does pretty much what's right in their own eyes. So it's a tweaking of you're not a virgin, and so I don't have to follow these steps. And since it's not on a record, then I guess I can make it up. You understand? So and this is kind of what we see. It's being tailor-made to whatever or however the person or people see fit. And oftentimes, more often than not, it's the masculine principle who is telling the feminine principle that you don't need certain things in place. Let's just go ahead, sign the paper on the bedside and let's get it on. And so these are some of the things that have happened, continue to happen, which then makes the separation process even messier if one does take place, because the legitimacy of the marriage is often contested. And so I'll leave it at that. Hopefully that was helpful.
It was, because it brought to mind something that is a feature or a fixture on TRC, and I think we'll try it out here. Shout out to Ashanti. She's on her way. She's running late, but she will be with us shortly. So shout out to Ashanti. Safe travel, sis. We'll keep your seat warm. No worries, no hurries. So we're going to do a quick lightning round, TRC style. A simple yes or no to kick it off. So it sounds like, Amuna, you've already given your answer, but I'll ask you to repeat it once more. So yes or no, would you say that everyone is doing what is right in his or her eyes now as it pertains to our marriage strategies?
I would say pretty much. Either their eyes, the eyes of their moray, their teacher, their leader, their pastor, pretty much.
Malaka, what is your vote? Sister Malaka?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second. Oh, yeah, it looks that way to me, and a lot of disregard for each other. So,
right.
And the decisions that we're making.
Let's see if we can get a consensus here. Sister Onila, what are your thoughts?
Well, yes, everyone is just doing whatever they want to do, remixing, whatever they could think to do. Yeah, so I agree with what's been stated.
So far, we have 100% consensus on the people seem to be doing what they think is right in their own eyes, and Torah and the law and the sages might have to take a back seat because the people have their own desires to tend to. We'll see if Shanti or Ima Naami have a different point of view when they join us, but for now, let's move ahead with the conversation. Only Love, what are your thoughts? You can give us more information about whether or not you have seen certain marriage strategies that are questionable and what they were, what they look like.
So I know some of these have been discussed on the Relationship Challenge, which everyone should check out because I was definitely a listener to that, but some still shock me no matter how many times I hear about them. The one, sex equals marriage. So just, but one thing, Hebrews think that this is something they made up or something they discovered in Torah, but I know for a fact that someone who was in the Christian church from like 1996 to about 2011, 2012, that teaching actually comes from a lot of Christian doctrines. If anyone's familiar with like Prophetess Juanita Bynum and her video sermon, No More Sheets, that sold like 1 million copies. I'm not saying she made up sex equals marriage, but I do remember like her and others coming up with the soul ties. Not coming up, but talking about these soul ties. If you sleep with someone, you're married to them. They would usually use the story of Yeshua and the Samaritan woman because they say he called her out for, being with all these men, but the last one wasn't her husband. It's just a hodgepodge of different scriptures and beliefs pulled together, some that probably come from the New Age. And I'm not saying when you have intercourse with someone that you're not creating, you're not, connecting on a spiritual level. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is now this has morphed into, in the Hebrew community, it means, sex equals marriage. Whereas even in the church, they didn't go that far. They were still like, you may be married to all these people, but you still need, to go through that ceremony. So that is one of the teachings that has shocked me the most. Also, another, tradition or whatever that's coming up is people who want a polygamous marriage. And so, okay, they have one wife, maybe they have two, but they're dating the potential wife that's coming in. and I don't know, they're calling it courtship, or maybe it's being called concubine, but people are seeing this as like a legitimate like dating or courtship option. And sometimes, you know, the current wives know. So I've heard stories where someone showed up, and, you know, thinking they were entering a polygamous marriage, and the first wife didn't even know until the person showed up. So this whole, like, you're courting someone, but you already have one or two wives is interesting to me as well.
Wow. I guess interesting is code for absolutely ridiculous and not Torah.
Yes, you know
that's really, I appreciate the euphemism, but I mean, we have to hold each other accountable. We want to be a righteous people. We want to be people who are worthy of the return, and we can't keep coddling bad behavior. And this is, you know, we cannot be people of the truth if we are engaging in this type of willful deception, and that's what we see happening in cases like, you know, I'm glad that you brought out that the sex equals marriage thing is not Hebraic. It's not some, the Most High awakened anybody and gave them this, that this does come from the church. It was interesting that I had, and I'll go to Malaka after this, that I was having a conversation with my mentor, my college mentor, and we were actually having these types of conversations, and he shared with me that there's actually a hymnal, there's a Christian hymnal, where the Samaritan woman is being called out by the New Testament Messiah on these multiple marriages. And so, because I asked him the same question, because I came in the 90s, and that was the spiel. Like there's like a spiel. Like it's the same thing you will hear over and over again. It's the same exact list of scriptures in the same exact order to come to feed you to the same exact conclusion. And it was interesting that when I asked him, he went on this path. He's not at all an Israelite, and he's not, you know, studying or under the tutelage of any Israelites. But this is the things that he learned at church. And that this is what they were saying. And I was just like, did you ever question it? And he was just like, yeah, I question. And it's true. He questions everything. And that's why we have such great conversations. But I say that just to confirm what you said, that this is definitely something that is coming from the Christian church. And it's interesting how many things we have appropriated, we have brought with us in our little baggies, and we said, oh, we're going to get up from this table, but we took a baggie, we took a to-go bag and brought it over here to Israel and just started making it sound like it's Torah. All right. So, Sister Malaka.
Mayana, really quick before we move on, because I just wanted to, I was laughing because not to be insensitive to sisters that are taken advantage of by these beliefs, but usually for those who know me off the show, usually when I say something is interesting, that's my way of saying it's a hot mess. So I just wanted to clarify that, you know, I wasn't laughing at the actual situations, but just your my little interesting comment. But
you were being far more sensitive than I was by calling it interesting. I needed it to be very blatant. This is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And being very, very kind. And you gave balance, because I'm sure there's somebody going, why did Mayana have to take it there, though? Why she had to be like that? So I'm sure there's someone that appreciated that you took the time to be sensitive about it and simply label it as interesting. But I appreciate you giving clarity. Sister Malaka, what are your thoughts? Sis, is your line on mute?
Yeah, the call just dropped.
All right, so we have... She's back?
Not yet.
All right, let me know when she's back. For now, we'll go over what we have so far. We have the sex equals marriage, the idea that all you have to do is engage in sexual activity, and that forms the covenant. Now, to be clear, we're not saying that you should go around having sex with people outside of a committed relationship. We're saying that only a committed relationship has the privilege of sex. So you would avoid having multiple sexual partners if you reserved that privilege for the covenant. So it's actually the opposite. We're not promoting promiscuity. We are promoting self-control, discipline, and committed relationships in the covenant marriage. So we have this idea that there is sexist marriage, and we are contesting that. There's also the idea of, in fact, I'm going to ask the sisters a question. So do you think that because there are such low standards for how we are constructing these marriages to begin with, that perhaps that is why they are dissolving so quickly or coming into some of the issues that they're coming to? Sister Emuna.
I'm sorry, Sister Mayana. Come again with the question.
Would you say that because these unions are being entered into so lightly, would you say that is contributing to why they are deteriorating so quickly?
Yeah, because I would say that if there's nothing invested, then there's, it's a light matter, basically, because if we look at in antiquity, acquiring a wife and getting the permission and going through the proper protocol wasn't a light matter, and being that this is a light matter because you can walk up on somebody and talk, and then boom, you're together. So it's like disposable. We're in the age of where everything is disposable. You don't wash your dishes, you throw them away. You know what I mean? You don't wash your glass, you just throw it in the trash bin. And so I think marriage being one of the foremost relationships that we see in Torah, this union, it reflects the state of humanity, the mentality of the humanity. So I don't think it's just marriage in and of itself, but it's a litmus for where we are as a people. We don't fix anything anymore. We just replace it. And so, those are my thoughts.
Excellent point. We are in that kind of microwave moment where we want everything fast and easy, and in the era of waste, and we just everything is disposable. There's nothing that is really meant to last. There's no long-term anything. And even though we know that to have this type of mentality is eroding our communities, eroding our planet, we continue to so very selfishly engage in this kind of activity. Sister Malaka, what are your thoughts? Oh, Sister Only Love, let's go to you first because Malaka's her call dropped. Only Love, what are your thoughts about that?
I think this whole idea of just randomly entering into a union is so far from Hebrew culture. If you study the ancient Hebraic marriage customs, I know there's not a lot written in Torah about it, but even in the surrounding cultures we were around, for instance, like in ancient Egypt, the women had long marital contracts, almost like prenups, where it was even if a husband divorced a woman, she had to get a certain amount of money so she wouldn't be destitute. And one thing that is concerning for me is that for a lot of new women entering Israel, they, come in not knowing that much. Then they're told, they need someone to cover them and teach them. And I know these things have been mentioned before, but a lot of times, they're lured in and then kind of dropped for the next person. And then there's a cycle of that happening over and over again to the point where some sisters leave, which I don't think you should, leave the Most High. But if, it's on one part, brothers taking advantage of sisters, but on another part, it's sisters sometimes being more concerned about getting a husband than getting close to the Most High when they come into the truth of who they are as a Hebrew woman. And so, and also because a lot of Hebrews may be estranged from family that are not in Torah, that celebrate pagan holidays, what I notice is people think, well, my parents aren't in the truth, so I don't need to consult them on who I'm going to marry. And I kind of take exception with that, even as someone who for many years wasn't with my birth parents, And my parents are not, neither one is Hebrew or, my grandmother who raised me, she's not a conscious Hebrew. They're Hebrew by identity, but not by practice. But I still think if I'm going to marry someone, I owe those people who brought me into the world and raised me the respect of them being involved in the engagement, in the courtship, in the marriage. I don't think just because your family is not in the truth that they should totally be cut out. Maybe you don't totally, go to them for advice on how to have a Hebrew marriage. But what I see is sometimes people getting married and their parents are nowhere in the picture. And I'm sorry, I can't see a justification for that, and I don't think it's wise, because your family still knows certain things about you. Even if you're this, Hebrew today, your elders still have some wisdom about who you are and what may, be good for you as far as a relationship, unless you come from a very, background where there may be no parents or a lot of abuse. But for the most part, I think we should give our elders respect, even in our courtship.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. What we find is that very often we are too eager to separate ourselves. We start to feel a little too grown. But the one thing that you're making an excellent point is that our Torah tells us to honor our parents and tells us to heed the wisdom of the elders. It's not just because, and I agree with you that it's definitely in part because of the wisdoms that they have and the knowledge that they have about us. But our elders very often in our family very often functioned as advocates for us. And so specifically for the woman who would be leaving her natal home to go to her nuptial home, she finds herself in a place where not having strong family ties could very well could have negative consequences should something go wrong. And we see that in Deuteronomy, when the husband had an issue, he brought it to her parents. And her parents were the ones that had secured this clause that was able to prove or, disprove that the union was verified and that his charges were false. But that was something that the parents did. She was not alone. She did have somewhere to go. The elders were involved. The judges were involved. This idea that no one is involved in my house or in my bedroom or in my business, it's all, it's me and I'm a man and I'm an island unto myself, that isn't part of our Torah constitution. That's not part of our Torah law or our Hebraic culture. We are not individuals. This individualistic mindset is uniquely American, uniquely Western. It's not Hebraic at all. Hebrews were very, very much about family, and this type of separatism is not what we would have taught as a people in antiquity. So those are excellent points. So the points about bringing in the elders, not pulling on consulting our elders and keeping them involved and honoring them by allowing them to experience these other phases of our lifetime. Excellent point, sister. I'm glad that you brought that up. Malaka, welcome back to the conversation. What are your thoughts?
Oh, hey, sis, I'm sorry. I'm definitely having technical difficulties or something on my end, so I'm going to pass on this round and give my time to someone else so that I can catch up, get back into the flow of what's being said.
Sure. Okay, absolutely. Just give you a heads up. We're talking now about the fact that we spoke about earlier, some of the ways that these marriage concepts are being constructed or misconstructed and misapplied, and there's these different areas for exploitation and manipulation. And then we ask the question, is it that maybe because these marriages are being entered into so lightly that they find themselves subject to deterioration so early and so easily? If all I have to do, or all I can receive is the bar napkin or the motel receipt, and that's supposed to serve as evidence of the union, then what makes the man say that he's beholden to any of those things? Like the Mona said, witnesses, there's no witnesses, there's nothing in writing. There's just, we pinky swear on it, and that's supposed to be all there is. And you're not entitled to any protections as a woman, as a wife.
Right. Okay. Well, then I am prepared to comment on that. I actually was saying a little bit about that earlier when I alluded to that I have adult daughters and that I oftentimes enter into these conversations with them. I have many play daughters, and then I have 4 daughters by birth of my body, and then the godchildren. But I often tell my daughters, when you are when someone is attempting to court you, it shouldn't be a secret, something where nobody knows what this fellow looks like. Nobody knows anything about him, where he came from. It should never be that. It should be community. I told my daughters specifically that come from my body that I expect that our family is marrying his family. If you were talking about bonding yourself to someone, you're bonding our 2 families together. That's Torah. You're bonding our 2 families together. And so I expect to know his mama and his dad and his people, And so I very much, my expectation as a parent is that my daughters would bring any prospective young man to meet their father and to meet me. And then, we are in the process right now. I have a daughter who has become betrothed. And so there's a process that we walk through with them where there's some accountability that the young man has to my husband in terms of, we're not requiring a dowry in terms of cows, but we are requiring a dowry in terms of the character points that he portrays to us. We are observing him. And so I think that's something that Sister Only Love was kind of speaking on, is that it's not a good thing, it's not a wise thing to exclude your family from the process of deciding whether or not you want to be married to someone. People who are not emotionally involved can see the other person's character more clearly than you can. That's just wisdom. And then the other thing I would say is that a lot of us, we do move too quickly. We don't know the person, and we're making an agreement that's supposed to be a lifetime agreement. It's a covenant that we're entering into with someone we really don't know. I had a young man tell me who was courting my daughter, and he was like, well, see, I know her. And I was like, listen, young man, I know her. I've known her for 27 years. About getting to know that person during the betrothal period, getting to know their family, getting to know the values, the expectations. And if we skip over that period, then we are setting ourselves up for a marriage that can easily disintegrate because there's not a lot that is intertwined. There hasn't been a growing together of families or community. That's part of what keeps a couple together is the community and the joining of the families. So without that, the marriage is a little bit more fragile than it would be if it had that. And the last thing I would say is that, I feel that as Israel, we should be doing things a little bit different than the nations do things. I don't think that our courtship should look exactly like the nation's courtship or worse. I think ours should represent a more set-apart process, something that doesn't go along with the mainstream but kind of swims against the mainstream or swims against the current, kind of a model of how to conduct oneself with the opposite sex in a way that's righteous. I feel like we're supposed to be a light to the nations, and so in every area of our walk, including courtship and marriage, we should be a light. And so including the community, including parents, I think that's very important because it creates a bond between the families that will serve to make the bond between the man and the woman stronger. So with that, I'll yield.
Excellent point. I want to, we've had all of these conversations many, many times on TRC. We touched on it periodically here on Under the Palm as well, as Only Love said. And we hear right now this idea about the elder. And I do recall we had an episode, or maybe 2, on that thought. So I was wondering if you wanted to build on some of the things that you've heard so far. Malaka made many, many, many excellent points.
Can I be heard?
You can be heard.
What's funny is when you said that, I remember the episode we did, what was the name of it? Do I need my family's permission before I get married? And that kind of pissed some people off.
Sure did.
Like, and some people were offended, and we were like, huh? You know, and so it just goes to show how, in theory, this all sounds good, but I believe I heard someone was speaking that we still have, I think it was you, you know, we took the takeout bag, we took the doggy bag, and we took away some things from the society that we're in, and we just have to be real about what those things are, you know. I'm grown. I don't need nobody's permission. I do whatever I want to do. You know, the truth of the matter is, unless you were born and reared to think that, your family's opinions matter and your father matters and your mother matters, and, you know, unless you were born and bred in that space, we're talking about people who have been disconnected for a long time, you know, and it's not necessarily in the heart. You know what I mean? It's in the mind. It's in the thoughts. But at the end of the day, it's I'm going to do what I want to do. You know, but as Sister Malaka said, it's wisdom as we begin to return and look at, because I myself has made mistakes, you know what I'm saying, with a mentality that this world teaches us. But as we return, we have to instill it in the children, in the next generation. If you're an adult and you've made mistakes, don't continue to make the mistakes. Because as I said, emotions, to a certain degree, they blind the eyes. And what you're not seeing, someone else is seeing, and even though you may not want to hear it, it may save you down the line. And so I think the elders are important because they've been there, done that. You know, They've gone through the whole thing, you know, they've navigated the waters, and it's wise to be like, so what do you think? He could be like, girl, he looked like a drinker. And you have some elders who's just a hater just because they just want to hate. And then you have wise elders, so you go to the wise elders. They'll be, girl, his hand looked like, You know what I mean? They look at little things that, as we say where I come from, they take sleep and mark that. You know what I'm saying? They can see something is going to be a problem. And at least you can say, you know what, I was warned. Because if you see a stumbling block and you put a stumbling block before the blind, the Torah says the fault is on you. But if you have the opportunity to warn someone, then it's on them. But in this day and age, we don't want warning. We want, go ahead, girl. Ooh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is the kind of conversation that we want, and then we want a shoulder to cry on when it all goes wrong. And you can't have it both ways. Either you're going to accept reproof and hear what has to be said, or you're going to be crying by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because you really can't have it both ways. So, you know, hopefully that answered the questions. The elders are important, but the right elders, because you might have elders who are just, they've been through it, and they still, at, whatever age they are, like, ooh, this one is going to be the one. You have some elders who never learned either. You know what I'm saying? And all the dude got to do is jump in the inbox, and boom, they gone too. So you just kind of have to know. I'm just keeping it real. You just have to know who you're talking to. And good advice from good people. So,
see, now that was the voice of Muna Yusrael, keeping it 100, keeping it real on Under the Palm Hebrew Women Speak. The phone lines are getting lit, I'm told. So why don't we go ahead and take our first caller. Caller, welcome to the conversation.
Is it me? Oh, thank you. That's me?
That's you. Welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Sister Shalom. I've been listening for like 28 minutes. And when I looked online, I originally called you guys because it said this is about marriage and I guess being married under Israel, correct?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
That this is about being married under Israel, right?
Absolutely. Within our Israelite communities, yes.
Yeah, I've been listening for 29 minutes. And the things that I heard you guys say, the only things that I felt that were disturbing was, like, say, for instance, I don't hear you guys putting true blame on the woman or the man that's involved. The fact that God gives us laws and says that within these laws, this is what marriage is. And if you don't first follow those laws that God suggested, then you aren't fit for marriage or ready to even be married. And someone said the dowry was supposed to be like his character could be a dowry. I don't believe that's true because it suggests it's supposed to be a dowry. Someone said we aren't getting paid in cows anymore, but there's still effort that has to be made towards the father. When you mention involving the family, according to God, it says ask God, ask the father, and have a witness, which will be with us, our elders, or someone to counsel us. So then from the counseling, it's like that's who would help you to choose and be within a marriage. And the courting process of looking through their family, looking through their energy, looking through their behaviors before you as a woman make a decision to marry this man. So you as a woman first have to be abstinent according to the law. You have to remain abstinent until you're married according to the law, not just because he makes promises or you start talking and enjoying each other. It's a major process only according to God first. Like, not with society, not with the standard of whatever, like people just wanting to be married. I think that as a woman who's in Israel, if you guys have history or if you're considered elders or if you just have time, you know when we read this Bible, it says what it says, which is supposed to be a set of laws. So when I hear you guys, it seems like you're kind of making an exception or allowing people to do whatever because of your own personal experiences or our own sins. And even with that stuff has to be stopped. Because when we're introducing these people into the truth and introducing them into the marriage, we expect them to create families and children that are going to continue to spread the truth as is, which means no premarital sex, no testers, no free samples. A man has to show he can provide a home, food, and clothing. And then on top of that, he still needs counsel and guidance from other elders as to how he should treat this woman, love her like he loves himself. It's a lot. And then there's no exception to divorce because Moses added
only
divorce.
because I okay.
Yeah, no one.
What's your name? What's your name, sister?
Sister
I'm
Carter.
sorry. Okay. I can't hear your name.
Sister Carter.
Sister Carter. Okay, great. You said that you were listening to the panel earlier, and I'm not sure how it was received, but we did say that in order to get into a healthy union that we are emphasizing the need to go through elders, to consult the elders. We also said we'll advise for anyone to enter into what they think is a marriage based on promises or anything other than actual covenant responsibilities and going according to the law. We called all of those things wrong. The questions that were asked were, what are the bad things, the wrong things, the maladaptive things that you have seen in the community, and we're bringing those things out so we can show why they're wrong, and we have been proving that they're wrong. We are the ones that are saying that there are laws in place that govern what a healthy, righteous covenant marriage looks like, and saying these other things are not that. So I hear a great deal of passion, and it sounds like you may have had some experiences with some things, and you're sharing those now. I want you to be aware that the panel is not advocating at all for any of these unlawful approaches or unlawful marriage strategies. Instead, they are speaking against them. All of the women on the panel will continue to bring laws to substantiate why and how marriage is supposed to be constructed based on a very particular formula that the Most High has put in place and not what the men or women have put in place. We are putting responsibility and accountability on those people.
On the people themselves that you said that sin. Because when I listen to you, like I said, I've been listening for 28 minutes. I did not hear that. All I hear you say is about what's wrong. That's true. But then in enforcing it, you still allow people to get married knowing they're not prepared for marriage or choosing the word.
Who's we? Who are you accusing of this?
It's not an accusation. I'm not saying anything poor.
You said you allow the people to do. So whom are you accusing? Who's the you in that conversation?
Us, you, me, people around, people in our community. The us is us.
We're having these conversations because we're not allowing it. We're saying it's not okay. We're literally saying this is not okay, and we're literally saying we will not allow it. That's why we're having these conversations. We're not allowing it. we're contesting it, we're protesting it, and we're giving basically mythbusters about why the people who are engaging in these things, people who have bad information about these things, we're giving them better information and putting it on record so that even if they're not the ones calling in and even if they don't catch it live, the Most High we're planting these seeds so the Most High in His season, those people have
But
somewhere.
what I'm saying to you is I'm sorry to interrupt you. I've been listening for 28 minutes and you never mentioned the scriptures in association with this. You never said don't do it. You said I understand or it has happened. And then you did say, yeah, this is what's going on. But the conversation of women's solutions to help other women.
I understand that you're basing your entire perspective on the 28 minutes that you were listening, but TRC, for example, has 3 years. I've been in the truth 25-plus years. Sister Muna has been in the truth 20-something years. And I understand that right now you're responding to 28 minutes, but there's a catalog of season after season of us absolutely dealing in depth for 2 to 3 and sometimes 4 hours on these laws. So I would ask for your patience as the conversation continues, and I can practically assure you that all the laws that you're expecting to hear will come. I beg your patience with us in this conversation as it unfolds organically. I apologize that we couldn't get everything out in the first 29 minutes, but as you continue to listen in, I'm sure you will hear more of what you're listening for. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay on the line and let us know if we're doing better as the conversation unfolds a little bit. We have about 3 hours on the air. So if you just stand by, you might hear some of the things you're looking for, sis. Fair enough? Okay, so I hear we have another caller style. Is the first caller still there? I didn't hear her.
Yeah, she's trying to respond. Yep, 312. Go ahead. You can respond.
Oh, in the process of teaching, you always supposed to reference the word. You're not supposed to be just talk. And you said be patient with 28 minutes. Anybody could have tuned in 28 minutes and needed your help, needed your authority to hear you directly referencing the word. But what I hear you saying, it wasn't that. So as I asked you, like, what is the plan? What's the solution? Are you telling women that come through the door, hey, sis, you can't be going out to have sex. You can't be giving this man this. You can't be giving this man that. It's different to speak on what's happening, like, oh, I see her doing this. I see her. You even mentioned that some of the elderly women are catty. Not that. You don't want to project that about the Israelite community when it's not such, when it's like it's elders that are truly loving and you seek, in the Bible it says you seek one counsel, not everybody. And then even in seeking it, you're supposed to be a reference to women every 28 minutes, every minute, every step. Not
do
you
want to
just check back in the past.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be able to say something. I want to thank the caller for calling in. So thank you for calling in. Thank you for your passion, your zeal. My name is Amuna. I co-host the Relationship Challenge, which we've had on this platform for 3 seasons. So a lot of the information, what we're doing is referencing things that we have already discussed on air. Please go to youtube.com/debate talk for you. I understand what you're looking for, but part of the problem with society today is microwave mentality. You want everything now. You want everything fast. And to get to a solution, we have to properly identify the problem. Now, I like to stick to the topic. It says, is marriage still sacred? And then the subtitle, or is every man doing what is right in their own eyes? The whole Sister Mayana has been asking along the lines of, is marriage still sacred? And so the way this conversation works is it is conversational, because the truth is you can beat people over the head with the scripture, and outwardly we pretend that we have arrived, but the truth is we have not addressed the underlying issues. So to negate the fact that we have been in captivity, to negate the fact that in other spaces during slavery, sex was marriage, to negate the fact that this mentality is in the church, to negate the fact that people are just waking up in their 20s, their 30s, and still subscribe to this, to jump to the, quote, solution, what we're doing is putting forth a false narrative. So here we're giving people an opportunity to say, listen, this is what has been said. This is what is going on. Because the approach that you have brought forth to say, you just put out scriptures, it has been done. And the reality is it creates an underbelly. It creates a space where people are still going to do what they're doing, not being honest. So what we do is turn it over. And we take a look at, this is what is happening, and this is why it's wrong.
That's right.
And so I understand what you're saying. Thank you for coming to the conversation. But as Sister Mayana said, you must employ patience. This is not this. No one said that. Listen, I'm going on the platform and I'm going to beat you over the head with scripts. If we want Bible study, then we step aside and we have Bible study. But right now we're having a discourse on things and in the way in which things have gone awry in our community. So I know people want to see everything beautiful with flowers and potpourri, but that's not the reality. It's not.
Right.
It's not
That's
the
right.
reality. So once again, to restate the topic, is marriage still sacred? Meaning at one point it was, and now it is not. And we have to talk about people's experiences. Who taught you this? Where did you get it from? Because to say that we are going to now, without identifying that culturally we have totally stepped away, right? And then you're going to say dowry. In certain places, people think they're buying a wife because you're totally outside of the culture that said you needed to compensate that family. What do you say to a person who has no father, who has no male figures? What do you say to that individual? You see what I'm saying? So this is a conversation that needs to happen around the entire thing, but just to keep it, you know what I'm saying, respectful, is it still sacred? Is everyone doing what's right in their own eyes? So once again, thank you for the call and the opportunity to clarify. And as we proceed, we come to the table ready to not just speak at one another, but to one another, so we can actually reach a resolve. Sorry, Mayana, I had to just jump in the whole seat real quick.
No, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. We take turns in the whole seat. That's what it's all about. That's what sisterhood is all about. And I want to echo that. I also appreciate the zeal that the first caller has shared with us, because it's true. This is an urgent thing. Our marriages, our relationships, this is a matter of urgency. I feel that with you. As Amuna said, we do have spaces that are called Bible studies. This is one of our segments, but just yesterday I had an 8-hour Bible study. I have them every other Sunday. So I don't want you to think that we don't care, we don't spend time with our sisters, and that we aren't fully involved. Again, this is your first experience, it sounds like, with our platform. As you say, you'll probably see more of what you're looking for. If that's all, we'll go to our next caller. If not, you're encouraged to stay on the line, and we'll take your call again. Sal, do we have anyone else waiting?
Yes, we do. Let's go to 443-815. You're live.
Yeah, hey, ladies. This is Brother Mercy.
Hey, Shalom, Brother Mercy. Welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, that it was in the days of Samuel that every man did what was right in his own eyes. And then it was after they requested the king that the polygamous relationship became popular through the kings. So what I wanted to say is that, it was after they had the kings that polygamy became very popular. It became a popular lifestyle for the rich and famous. So after they requested a king, and of course we know this is a wicked request. Many times we look at that every man doing what's right in his own eyes is a bad thing. But that was the lifestyle before they had kings. So I just wanted to say that, is marriage sacred? I believe it is. But, was it sacred after King Saul had many wives? Was it sacred after David had many wives? Then it became not as sacred, So, sacred means holy, means secluded. So when you start having polygamy and all this other stuff going on, then then it becomes less sacred. Even through Abraham with Hagar and all that. So I just wanted to say, every man doing what's right in his own eyes is not always a bad thing, because they had the dowry system back then, and I think it was good, a good system. But I just wanted to say that marriage is still sacred. It just depends on, like anything else, it depends on what you do with it. And things that are disposable depend upon how much you invest in it. Like if you're talking about paper plates, you don't spend a lot of money on paper plates. But if we're talking about a car, you don't just throw a car away. You take it to a mechanic to get it fixed. So I think it depends on what you're talking about and what you're trying to fix. people just don't put a lot of investment in the Torah. So therefore, that's why they don't value it. So that's all I want to say.
That's a good point. If you don't put a lot of investment in the Torah, then the guidance that the Torah offers, the practical lessons and the practical, I said guidance already, the practicality of the Torah is lost. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next caller. Yeah, we'll take the next caller again, so go ahead. You can bring it back into the conversation. Thank you, Brother Mercy, for bringing those points up.
All right, hello. We have a caller, 410-488. You're live. Go ahead.
Shalom, caller. Welcome to the conversation.
410, are you there?
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Hallel, Hallel, Yahuwah, Hallel. This is Akot Marcia calling from Maryland. I've been listening intently, and I pulled up on on my Facebook the actual post. Is marriage still sacred? Yes, it is, as far as I'm concerned, because Yahuwah says that that's what Yahuwah is, Yahuwah Kodesh, and he says that his people, Yisrael, are supposed to be the same. He says that if I am Kodesh, then that's what we're supposed to be. And even though we are in all of these different diasporas, we scattered all over the world, we acting crazy because Jehovah said that's what would happen to us in the fumes of this disobedience from our ancestors. So that's what we are. We are in a situation of spiritual insanity on many, many, many levels. And anything that we are engaged in, no matter, how trivial we may seem it, to be, or how important we seem it to be, if the foundation of that is not, quote unquote, what thus saith Yehovah, as best we can find out through all of these, discombobulation of translations that we have of what has been left on record for us. But I believe that through our prayer and our fasting and our beseeching Yehovah, that we will have the guidance and the direction and the enlightenment that we need on any and every matter. A lot of times our flesh get in the way when we seek the guidance of Yehovah, the enlightenment of Yehovah, to be able to fine-tune the situation in our lives. Sometimes we don't want to do it because of our flesh. So, that's where, as the brother was saying, that we see what happened to us when we, got out of pocket and everybody was doing what they felt was, crunked and stuff in their own perception. So that's pretty much where we are today. Perception, as they say, somebody wrote a long time ago, perception is truth. It is our own particular version of truth, quote unquote, but everybody has a different perception. You could be on the east side, somebody could be on the west side, somebody could be in the north and the south, and we're looking at one thing, but we're all looking at it from a different, quote unquote, perception. And if that perception is not inclusive of what thus saith Yehovah, as best as we can determine through diligent study and prayer and research, iron sharpening iron, through the guidance, through the enlightenment of the word of Yehovah, through the spirit of Yehovah, to let us know, what is the best direction for us in any given matter, then we're going to be jacked up. We're already jacked up, so to speak, not only in the natural, but also in the spiritual, and also in our, mental, in our lab, in our heart. But, as Shlomo, before he got really, totally crazy, he did leave on record that, guard our hearts with all diligence, because out of it forms the vicissitudes of life. So if you don't guard your mind, your heart, if you don't guard that, and you let everything hang out, as they saying, that old saying, you wear your heart on your sleeve. If you let everything hang out, then you're gonna attract the predators. They're gonna come in and they're gonna work you like a spare rib. So we don't want that. So when we carry everything that we have to deal with back to the foundation of what thus saith Yehovah for his people, Yisrael, to be Kodesh, quote unquote, holy, set apart, distinctive and distinguished, and we are supposed to follow that model, then I think we will be all right as we await the Barik Hadashah, or the covenant renewed, because we ain't got it yet. We're still waiting on that. So what we're dealing with, as I said before, is all these mistranslations of these different books and stuff, these writings and stuff by the hands of men that has been, filtered down through us through the ages. And so we know it's going to be some stuff in there that's not correct. It ain't right. It ain't on point. But prayer, fasting, beseeching Jehovah with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. I think that we can be better than what we was before in all of the craziness. And that's Jehovah to wipe that
you're
craziness
making
away.
several very good points.
Hallelujah.
But one of the things that you said was, in terms of the title, is marriage sacred? But the title is marriage still sacred?
Still.
Because, and let me finish. And the reason we named it that way is because we all agree that the way the Most High intended for marriage to be understood is that it is sacred. But have we continued to hold it sacred? And even in many of the things that you're saying, we have not kept what the Most High had instituted, what the Most High had intended. And that's why the question becomes, well, is it still sacred? Are we still going by the fear? Because the Most High said it's to fear Him and to keep His commandments. Are we walking around no longer in fear and no longer keeping what was made sacred sacred? It's, of course, sacred because the Most High says it's sacred, but are we making it sacred? Are we keeping that? Are we showing the fear of the Most High and saying the Most High has designated rules? Things happen in a particular order. We must observe those orders in fear and in trembling and humility, or are we saying, I don't like that, that's not comfortable, that's not convenient, that's not going to work for me, and making it all up as we go along? And that's the question, and that's the concern of today's conversation. A lot of what you're saying addresses that.
Yeah, hallelujah, yes.
Hallelujah.
And I believe that the marriage in and of itself, as you said, it is that marriage, quote unquote, that covenant, the covenant agreement that Jehovah gave to Yisrael is still there. It has never went away. However, what we do with it and our understanding of what it is, it has been lost down through the ages and stuff because of us being in the captivities and being under punishment. So that all the different mistranslations that we're dealing with. But this thing, the covenant is still great.
We're the same people. We're disobedient before there were mistranslations, and we're disobedient and selfish now.
Right.
And the other things just they're not helping. But we really appreciate you, because we have other callers waiting. So stay on the line and press 1. We'll bring you back into the conversation. Okay, we have, if any of the elders, if Ima Yehudi or Ima Naomi are out there, don't forget you have to press 1 so that you can come back into the conversation. We will pull you back in. Your seat is waiting for you. Malaka, Only Love, Muna, we've heard some very, very interesting things from Brother Mercy, from Sister Marcia, from the first caller. I believe she's holding on to come back into the conversation. Would you guys like to say anything about that, ladies? About the things that we've heard so far?
I
Go ahead, Sister Only Love. Go ahead.
Okay. Shalom. Sorry about that. I just wanted to chime in that I think, just to make it clear, I'm very strong about, celibacy until you're married and, not practicing sex outside of marriage. But I think for a lot of the younger people coming into the truth, there has to be a level of discipleship or mentorship about how to walk that out in a practical way, how to heal the way you see men, the way you see women. We have people coming into the truth who have been through sexual abuse. We have people who are coming into the truth who, may be coming from all types of backgrounds. And I do think, elders and counselors at your congregation can offer support, but there are many without a congregation, and family can play a role, though everyone may not have family who's in the truth or family who is available. One item that surfaced in the documentary about the divorce kind of practice that's happening in one branch of Islam is that these women were very secretive when it came to what they were doing and their family. They didn't want anyone in the community to know that they were going through this, ritual of sleeping with this man so they could remarry their first husband, and then they were exchanging money for this whole thing. And it reminds me of how so many relationships in the Hebrew community are very secretive. Like, no one knows, and I'm a strong believer in community. not just elders and people you worship with because they see one side of you, but your family, your coworkers. If you're courting someone, people from different parts of your life should know about them. But I also wanted to lift up, like, how do we, in bite-sized pieces, break down how a young Hebrew person in this day and age can keep themselves. You know, many people will travel to other cities to worship with a congregation. Some men don't travel alone because that's a place of temptation. So these are just, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think if we're trying to reach other Hebrews, especially young people, it's very important to be brutally honest and to also break down, like, tactics in your life that you have used to court or to stay celibate, to wait until you're married. I think sometimes the spiritual words can be, the scripture is very important to me, but I think sometimes even as Hebrews, we may throw out these purity culture, like, sayings from the church, and young people still, you know, can be lost. And so I just wanted to add those points.
Thank you for that. Malaka, did you want to say something also?
Yes, I do. The first thing I wanted to say is that I think pretty much on every episode of UTP, and I know on TRC, either yourself or Sister Imuna will say something about the need for discipleship in a young woman's life. I'm pretty sure on every episode I've ever heard, someone on the panel, if not the host, will stress the need for discipleship in the life of every believer, every Hebrew, but especially because we're, you know, a lot of our conversations are involving young women or women, period. We will stress that concerning women. And I want to say that, you know, the design of this show is not to disciple. The show is not designed to what real life is supposed to happen. That's where you're supposed to make real life relationships with elders, with mothers, with people that you can sit down and study with. If you don't live close enough to do that, then I understand that, because for 2 years I lived in a neighborhood that's rural, and I couldn't find other Hebrews to worship with, but I was consistently searching for them until I did find them. And then I was witnessing, hoping to help some cross over so that I would have people to sit down and worship with. So, you know, to try and get discipleship from this show is not a good idea. This show is going to give you some sound advice, some reference, some resource, some warning, some encouragement. It's not going to disciple you, because you need that to happen in real space, in real time. And so I wanted to kind of put that out there, you know, that this show can't take the place of a disciple, of a mentor in your life, of a teacher or a mother or a father in the faith. This show can't do that for you. It can do a lot of things, a lot of good things for you, but it's not going to do that. So I want to encourage anyone who's listening, who's new in the faith and hasn't yet made that connection with a Knesset or a congregation or a mother in the faith. Keep looking. There, you know, social media is a great way to find people. If you know, maybe you can find people to connect with. You'll find out about local congregations or studies that are happening. And if you just really don't have anyone around you, then there are group studies that go on. Like Sister Mariana has it's so instructional. On biblical womanhood. Sister Imuna has a website called Solonomics, where you can go on there and get some good information and good teaching. Sister Only Love has an online class that she's doing. If there are things that are out there, if you just don't have anyone to fellowship because of where you live, but I want to stress the importance of that. And then secondly, I wanted to say that I believe that the concept of marriage, as God created it, is set apart. It's supposed to be a set apart covenant, a relationship that's not say, I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine, sis. You're breaking up a little bit on some lines, but I hear you okay.
Okay. I apologize. I think it's where I'm at. I think it's something going on in our with our whatever satellites are in the area where I live. But anyway, I'm not going to go on and just rant. But I did want to say specifically something was brought out regarding a comment I made about dowry, and I wanted to say this. The fact of the matter is the scripture does talk about a bride price.
Right.
And it's up to the father of the bride to set the bride price. So if you don't have a father in the natural who's active in your life, and if you do have a father in the faith who's active in your life, the father in the faith might say to you, we need to observe this young man's character, or a mother might say that to you. I'm simply giving examples from my own personal life about how we navigate these types of relationships with our daughters, with our adult daughters, the rules that I put out there for them. I'm not telling you that should be the bride price that your father sets forth for a potential mate for you. But I'm saying there does need to be a bride price. There does need to be the involvement, if it's possible, of elders in your family. Because we're not just talking about, one of the things we said at the top of the show was that we were looking at we were identifying cultural things as well. So we can go down and we can look at the 613 mitzvah, and we can pick through that and see what's relating to marriage. But we can also talk about culture. We can talk about what Yah showed us through Torah, through the culture of our ancestors. We can look at what Yah showed us about marriage through his relationship with Israel. So it's not just reading the 613 mitzvahs to inform ourselves. It's also looking at the culture. It's also looking at Yah's behavior towards his bride. Those things inform us as well. And I think it's usefulness that sometimes gets the best of us when we think that we can begin to speak to people who have been in this faith walk for 25 years and inform them about how things should be done. Torah tells us to be wise, to listen to wisdom who's crying to us in the street. And it may not always come in the package of a scripture. It may come in a very solid, simple statement. And I'll give you an example, and then I'll yield. On the day that I was getting married, not to my current husband, but to my husband who passed away, my grandmother said to me, "Honey, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear." I'll say that again. She said, "You can't make a silk purse." Didn't really understand what she meant in that moment. But over time, I came to understand that what she meant was she saw flaws in this young man that I wasn't going to be able to change or make better. But I didn't heed what she said because I didn't hear it spiritually. I took it lightly because it was just some old country saying to me. So just because someone's not quoting a scripture word for word doesn't mean there isn't wisdom in what they're saying. You do need to measure what's being said against scripture because scripture is our structure. It's the law. But I just wanted to put that out there for young people who are listening. This show can't disciple you. Wisdom comes in other packages. We look at culture. We look at Yah's behavior to inform us as well. And with that, I'll yield.
Sort of for that. The time now is 9:22 p.m. Eastern Time, and you're listening to Under the Palm Hebrew Women Speak. Tonight's topic is asking the question, is marriage still sacred, or is every man still doing what he or she thinks is right in their own eyes? We're looking at some of the bad information that brothers and sisters have received and have recycled and repeated, and the damage that it has done, and what we can do to rectify them. What scriptures are there that guide what marriage is supposed to look like so that we can go back to the restoration and the rebuilding and the reclaiming of our righteous homes? So, to recapitulate, we were looking at the fallacious doctrine that all one has to do is have sex to be married. This is not substantiated by our Torah, by our culture. It is not seated in anything scholarly at all. Instead, it does have these other less than Hebraic origins. They believe, including the Christian Church, and other ideologies and ideas. And so what we're saying, and what we have always said and will continue to say, is that in order to do righteously, we have to follow things according to Torah. As Amuna stated, we're identifying those ways that we have veered left of Torah and how we can get back to them as part of this second conversation, now that we're already at the 9:25 minute mark. But we do have one final caller on the line waiting patiently to be heard, and we'll listen to that caller and then move forward with the conversation and look at whether why divorce is still a thing here in Israel. Sal, go ahead and let the caller through.
312, you're live.
Oh, no, I have nothing to contribute. That's not against the last statement made. So I'm just going to continue listening because I think I will be backtracking. But thank you.
All right, thank you, sis. Okay, so moving forward. So we were looking at we've already discovered.
Stand by, Mayana. Somebody just pressed number 1. If you want to take that, you can. It's up to you.
Yeah, sure. Let's take that call.
All right, let's go to 908-463. You're live.
Shalom, my sisters. How are you?
Shalom. Welcome to the conversation.
Shalom.
Who are we speaking with?
You're speaking with Esther Brown.
How you doing,
my
sis?
big sister, Mayana, you know who I am.
That's right.
Shalom, sis.
I hear I don't do Bible study, sis. This is what they say.
Oh no.
Hey, bad girl, I haven't been on my job. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing good, thank you. Oh, yes, you do Bible study. And you just reached out to me over the weekend to attend your roof study class, but I was ill, and I'm still ill, but I'm just trying to sound a little preppy because I'm on the phone right now.
Well, what are your thoughts about tonight's topic, sis?
Oh, I think tonight's topic is good. I think that I don't want to speak on it until I get educate myself a little bit more also. I just say wow. I'm just
hallelujah.
Wow.
Hallelujah. You know, we're gonna pick up the pace a little bit because we got a little sidetracked, and so we're gonna pick up the pace and move forward with the conversation, and now kind of look at how we can remedy all of the ways that we're going wrong. So at the top of the hour, at the top of the conversation, we went over the anecdote about this Muslim documentary wherein the woman had to actually sleep with another man in order to become eligible to go back to her first husband. As we said before, this is the exact kind of opposite. It's turning on its head what it says in Deuteronomy regarding the laws of divorce.
Okay, now I missed that part.
What are the laws of divorce? I'm going to ask the panel. Amuna, what is the law of divorce according to Torah? How does one get a divorce according to Torah? And how is it different from what we saw in that video?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. Hold on, the baby. The law of divorce.
Hi, Amuna. Shalom.
Hey, shalom, sis. What's going on? The law of divorce. And I'm going to get you the exact script. It's in the book of Deuteronomy. It deals with having to get the writ in your hand and be sent. It's actually 2 parts, and I want to get it for you here. And so this is where people are. There's some uncleanness, and there's an argument or a dispute of what the uncleanness is. And so this is the conversation you see coming up in the New Testament. It's in the book of Deuteronomy 24, so I'll read it. When a man takes a wife and marries her, and 1, right, 24 and 1. When a man takes a wife and marries her, and if it happens that she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some, quote, uncleanness in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, puts it in her hand, and sends her out of his house. When she has departed from his house and goes and becomes another man's wife, if the latter husband detests her and writes her a certificate of divorce, puts it in her hand, and sends it out of his house, or if the latter husband dies who took her as a wife, then her former husband who divorced her must not take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled. For that is an abomination before the Most High, and you should not bring sin upon the land which the Most High, your power, is giving you as an inheritance. And so when you talk about the video, the documentary, I believe it's BBC documentary, it's the exact opposite. The women are thinking that you have to get defiled in order for the first husband to accept you back. Which, like you said, if you know Torah, you're like, wow, this is like the exact opposite. So the man divorces you. He says he divorces you. If you remain unmarried, or if you, in that case, if he doesn't send you from the house, or you go back to your father's house, then you're separated, right? Then you can reconcile. But if he has divorced you and you have moved on, then you cannot go back to that man. And that's Torah. It says the land has been defiled. And so this conversation comes up throughout Torah symbolically, and the Most High is talking about Israel, asking for the certificate of divorce. You know, these things come up. But if you don't know the basis of the law, you will kind of misunderstand what is being said. So hopefully that answers the question. The book of Devarim, Deuteronomy 24, 1 through 4, and then you'll begin to get an understanding of divorce. I relinquish the mic unless you have another.
I believe what Amuna just said.
Right. So, according to our Torah, the way divorce is established is that the man must write down his charge, give it to her in her hand, and send her out of the house. None of these parts can be missing for a legitimate divorce to be executed. He cannot give her a writ and keep her in the house. He can't send her out of the house but then never give her the writ. These both of these two parts have to be in order for there to be a legitimate divorce in place. And again, as Amun and I and everyone else on our panel normally emphasizes, is that Torah is practical. Why, and I'll put to the panel, why is it that the woman would have to have this writ of divorce in her hand? What practical reason is applied to that action? What is the point of her having that? What does it do?
Can I say real quick, Sister Mayana, because this is Amuna again. It's proof. You understand what I'm saying? Because people change their mind, and people lie, and people people get upset. People do things in the heat of anger and displeasure. People do things to manipulate other people. And so in a situation, as there's some uncleanness in his eyes, and he's not vibing with her, and he wants to manipulate her. This happens in today's space and time, and this is why we spend a lot of time speaking about what's going on. Because the reality is he may be in her house. So now how are you going to apply this? Because it says, and send her for the house, because the text, the thought of him living in her house wasn't in the author's mind when they're writing this. You see what I'm saying? And so we have so many scenarios that are off today. We have to come to the table. This is why we have conversations like broke pockets, broke at home. If you, as the caller did say, if you cannot manage your family financially, we ask the question, should you be entitled to a wife? A lot of people are upset about that one.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? And so these are all the things that when we get, you can't just pull Deuteronomy out of context without weighing all of these things to say, you know what if he's not living there? What if he's living with her? What if he doesn't contribute to the household? You see what I'm saying? Does she get to kick him out? These are the questions that people are going to begin to ask. Do we have answers? But I'll relinquish the mic.
I would add that during one of the conversations, one of our sisters submitted that in order to devalue or delegitimize a sister's claim of a desire to be a legitimate wife, they may be confronted with this notion of, well, you're not a virgin, so the laws don't apply to you. And so there's this idea of virginity that gets upheld and kind of, waved in the face of the woman and saying that she's not entitled to things. So this is evidence of how important virginity was in our antiquity and continues to be as a sign of the woman's legitimate claim to being married. So by saying that, I'm adding that the purpose, the practical purpose of having this physical writing in her hand is that a man who may say, well, I'm going to charge you with some uncleanness in your body because you weren't a virgin when I married you. And so instead of, mind you, being charged with whoredom and any of these things was an extreme blight against a woman in antiquity, and even now it continues to be a very big deal, the chastity of the woman. So if a woman had been married before and she is getting married again, that piece of paper explains why she's not a virgin to the second husband, and the second husband doesn't get to say, well, I'm going to bring charges against you because you weren't a virgin. You knew she wasn't a virgin when you married her, and you knew that she wasn't a virgin not because she was whoring around, but because she was once the wife of another man. So that piece of paper gives her some of that. I want to give the phone over to, or the mic over to Ima Naomi, who is officially in the building. We're about to get right back on track. We kind of stumbled a little bit. We're about to get right back on track. Ima Naomi is in the house. Ima Naomi, the mic is yours.
Oh, okay. I'm just tuning in because my phone actually died.
Oh no!
I had to get it charged because I've been out since early this morning. And the power just went out. You know, it finally just said later for me. Anyway, you know how I think most of you know how I feel about a marriage and official marriages taking place in Israel. I'm just so sick of these men who have these lay-down situations. I know that laying with a woman does not constitute marriage under any circumstance. If that were the case, there would not be a difference between a wife and a concubine. Because, you know, that's number one. But number two, we have to remember that in our ancient history and even in our history, even in this country, marriage was not just between a man and a woman, but it was between the uniting of two families.
That's right.
So there had to be official notification. There had to be official recognition by the community. There had to be some sort of ceremony. Even in slavery or even during the times that we were most oppressed, we had the jumping the broom, something to symbolize that man and that woman were now united. This nonsense that some of our brothers and some of our sons are coming up with, talking about, well, if I lay with you, that makes you my wife, that's nonsense. That means that what you're doing is that you're having all of the sexual pleasure that you want to do without accepting any responsibility. When a man takes a wife, and that's the way it is, when a man takes a wife, he doesn't just lay with, he doesn't just take her for the purposes of laying with, he can do that with a harlot. If you want to lay, and if that was the case too, by the way, laying with a harlot would mean that you're married to her. And everybody knows that that's not so. So when you take a wife, you also vow, and it may not be the same, it may not have been the same in ancient days as it was today, in the same kind of ritual as far as the wording is concerned, but I'm sure that there was some sort of wording. Probably the thing that we do, that we used to do at Hashaba when we vow under God that you're going to take care and protect this woman and her children, that, you know, and any offspring from there, that you're going to, you know, protect, not only protect her, but you're also going to provide for her and all the rest of that. So this nonsense that I hear, where it's about, well, you know, I laid with her, so therefore she's my wife. Nonsense doing that, because what happens is that gives the man all of the benefit of having a wife without having any real responsibility that is accountable by law or any other method. So we need to stop that. If we're really talking about building strong families, you want to have that word protect. For instance, if you marry a woman in the Israelite normal fashion where you just lay with her, if you die, that woman has no right to anything. She's not your wife, according to the law.
That's right.
How do you provide for her? How do you provide for her children? And yes, I understand that children can go into court of law and everything like that, if they can prove it they're illegitimate, if the birth certificate was signed. But that's not a way. If you love that woman, then you want to protect her. If you love that woman, then you want to. If you have any kind of caring and feeling for that woman, then you are going to want to make sure that she is provided for even when you're not there. And in addition, it's not in Hebraic culture that you just lay with her. That's what Levi and Shimon got into trouble for, or not trouble, but that's why they made their father so afraid, because they say, do you lay with our sister as you do with a harlot?
That's right.
And what's his name? Shechem loved her. He said, the book says he loved her. But that had nothing to do with it. You don't take a woman like that without ceremony, without, when you think about it, and I'm trying not to be too lengthy with it, but I get all upset about this particular subject. When you think about it, there are three instances in our lives that are of major import to us. That's our birth, our marriage, and our death. And most societies around the world, and I've studied other cultures too, ceremony and some rituals around those three occurrences. Now, for us to say that we don't need to do this and we don't need to bother with that as long as I lay with the woman, that's acknowledged that is not the case. And getting a couple of your homies standing up there talking about, yeah, amen, that's not a ceremony. I'm sorry. You give that woman what is her due. Just like even the songs talk about the bride coming out of her pavilion and the bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Come on now. We need to stop this foolishness. Legitimize these marriages. Make sure that you're responsible. You're vowed before God and before man that you're going to be responsible for this woman and her children. And maybe we wouldn't have all of these loose alliances that we have seen floating around Israel, and all these women floating from one man to another, because the brother brought her in on the law, telling her about polygyny and all the rest of that foolishness and whatnot, when he was not prepared to take care of her. Let me get off the subject because I think I'm going to start getting hotter and hotter about it.
Praise Yah. That was the voice of Ima Naami, one of the two elders that regularly come on our panel here on Under the Palm. Under the Palm has two of our elders every other Monday speaking on these matters. Ima Naami is 72, more than 50 years in the culture. That's wisdom speaking right there. Before we go back to the phone lines, we have Ashanti. She's finally made it over. Hallelujah. Ashanti, you have so much to catch up on. Say whatever comes to mind. The mic is yours.
Shalom. Debate talk for you. Under the Palm, all my sisters, Brother Sal. Pardon me for the tardiness. I'm a respectful teacher, so I had to, be subject to the elders of my congregation. We had to get some things squared away. And that's doing everything decent and in order. But this sole subject is marriage sacred. I do have a lot to catch up on, and I know, Sister Mayana, there's always a format and a flow to which you stick to. I would like to say two things, and I'll make this brief, very brief. Coming into this Israelite walk of faith, or whatever we want to title ourselves as, people want to take things and use them to their own advantage, and if we don't vet the people we're listening to, they can easily manipulate us and guilt trip us and start spewing things off the mouth without us thinking we need to go back and research and investigate, interrogate their motives, their agendas, and things like that, as far as them bringing out the information. But in this walk we've given, I will say this, I'm probably going to ruffle a little feathers, but we've given too much control to man. We've given too much control to man. And when I say giving too much control to man, I'm saying humankind as a whole. And us giving control to humankind as a whole is saying, okay, one species of the human race is up on this pedestal. You got to take their word for everything. There's been too much power given to man. And we've given that man absolute power to control, dominate, regulate, rule, explain things. And we put our faith and trust and belief
in the hands of man. And also, lastly, I'll say this: a marriage is very sacred, of course. The thing about marriage is we really don't know what it's about, even according to the Bible. We still stuck on what a man role is and what a woman role is. You know what I mean? Sometimes we see blatantly what it's there, but sometimes we just, like the title says, we want to do what's right in our own eyes because we have our take on what marriage is. And in America, you know, right now we have this thing of a marriage license, which turns into marriage certificate. And we all know how the marriage license came to be, you know, in the mid-1800s. You know what I mean? The marriage license came to be to keep the Negroes from marrying Caucasian women. And it turned into a business that people could make money from. However, I see the lemon being sour in that case, where you've seen the source of where marriage licenses and certificates came from. I see the sour lemons in that. However, the lemonade is it makes sure there's checks and balances. It makes sure there's accountability. And that system, even though it's good, it has become abused. And even in America now, we got marriage licenses that are not honoring a man and a woman as sacred covenant or commitment. Now you got males can marry males, quote unquote, and you got females that can marry females, quote unquote. So there's a possibility that a lot of Israelites see the system of marriage licenses and certificates as some sort of dysfunction to the sacredness. However, it does keep marriage sacred for man and a woman, because, as Sister Naomi just said, it makes sure that man is accountable and responsible, or else he's just going to leave without trying to take care of what he said he was going to take care of when he built it. Or you know, vice versa. When a woman says she was going to do this, that, and the other, it holds her accountable as well. You just can't leave. You just can't leave people high and dry with what you said you was going to build together. You know, I'm married myself, and what a man and a woman builds together, boy, oh boy, a lot of your life is at stake. You're a stakeholder in that thing. You know what I mean? You've accumulated bills, you've accumulated wealth, you've accumulated, you know, stock, you've accumulated children. You know what I mean? And children are being bigger. So that's what I will say. You know, we're just giving man as the human being too much power. You know, a lot of people are going to do what they want to do in their own eyes, regardless of what they see. They just going to follow what they follow, and then they're going to try to manipulate you into following them. Like, okay, well, Scripture says I could just do this. You know, like I said, when you find yourself educated, you find yourself not being manipulated. And to all my sisters out there, please study the Word for yourself. You have rights. A lot of women don't think they have rights. A lot of women don't think they have right to be educated and know what the Scripture says. They think they don't have rights to nothing. They think they just got to obey man every word, even if that man is going to, you know, put them in some sort of lawlessness, even with the Most High, even with the land. So that's what I'll say for now. And I'd love to hear from the audience. I'm just happy to be on dialoguing with you guys about this matter. You know, I don't know what it is with our brothers nowadays with not wanting to get married. You know, I think the Americanized state of mind has put a negative stigma on marriage to where a lot of our brothers don't want to get married, or they just want to put women away for any old reason because they don't want to do some introspection and check their own heart, check their own motives, and check, you know, are they really trying to live according to the spirit or live according to the flesh or carnalities and what they desire? I yield.
Can you definitely made up for lost time. Hallelujah. I wanted just to add real quickly before I bring Only Love back into the conversation. She's not feeling well. She'll have to leave us soon, so I'll bring her in for her last thoughts after I share this with you. When we say that we're not really sure what marriage looks like, I often would like to point to the account in Exodus where the Most High is on the mountain with Moshe, and we're given the Ten Commandments. And what's particularly important in that account is that the Most High writes with his own finger our vows. He says, I'll write them with my own finger. The 10 Commandments are the covenant. That it's the covenant that's found in the Ark of the Covenant. We have a box that's called the Ark of the Covenant, and inside the Ark is the 10 Commandments. That's the covenant between Israel and the Most High, and that covenant was written with his very finger. So this idea that as women, as the bride, that we are not to expect to have something in writing, this idea that it doesn't exist in our culture is absurd when the Most High didn't feel like he was too good to give his bride something in writing. Every time the Most High had a covenant with his people, it was something that was obvious. It was public. It's not something that is secret. It's something that is very much a tangible thing. It's not a pinky swear. It's not you know it, I know it, nobody else needs to know it. When the Most High say, you know what, I'm going to make a covenant with Noah. He said, there's going to be a sign between us. It wasn't a secret sign. It's a rainbow. It's in the sky. Like it's not hidden. It's not a mystery. The protection, the fact that I'm going to come and make a pact with you, that is a public pact. The protection was known. It's a known thing. When the Most High went into a covenant with us, it was a known thing. The other covenant that we have the men wear that covenant on their physical bodies. There's nothing more physical than circumcision. What's more physical than that? To say that we have to have all of these abstract covenant ideas instead of something that is physical, tangible, and presentable, that is madness. There's no Torah principle for that. The Most High gave us a ketubah. We call it the 10 Commandments. We have this inside the Ark of what? Our covenant. It's the Ark of the Covenant. So, sisters, this idea that you are not entitled to have a ketubah. A ketubah just means written things. So when brothers tell you, oh, there's no ketubah in Torah, it's literally in Torah. Once you read it in Hebrew, the word there is ketubah. It means the written thing. So if it's written, it's a ketubah. We spoke earlier about if a man had decided that he saw some uncleanliness in her and his wife, and he wanted to bring a charge against her, then he would bring this woman back to her family, and the family had the sheets of the night that they consummated, and they were able to present this thing. This is another physical piece of evidence that a marriage has expired. So there's this idea that you are not supposed to have that somehow this is a Western mindset, that you don't need to be legitimized, that you don't need to have protection, that his word is all you need. That's not correct. And it's not just to be hating on brothers. It's literally just not the case. All of the laws tell you that you have space for protection. Deuteronomy tells you, listen, if a man takes a wife, he has to go without work or war for a full year. You know what that means? If you can't go to work and you can't go to war, you're not earning money for a year to stay at home and make her happy is what it says. And that's basically just building trust and creating a bond with the wife so that you can have a righteous household. But the point, what I want to bring your attention to is that man can't go to work or war for a full year. That's a man that has planned for his family. How many of you can live for the next, not going to work for a year on your savings? This man had to plan ahead. He didn't go in with no plan. So now we have all of these secondary conversations about child support. Right? These are conversations that don't happen in marriages. These things are happening on, I laid with you and I got up and I didn't feel obligated to you. These are conversations that lead to child support. And then it's like, well, how can you go and put a man on child support who can't afford to be on child support? When the question should be, how did a man create a child that he couldn't support?
All right.
Now, with that, I'll leave that as a thought in the head and turn the mic over to Only Love, who has soldiered through the panel with us all the way almost until the 10 o'clock hour. So thank you so much for hanging in there. If you have any last thoughts to share with the audience, the mic is yours.
Shalom and good night, everyone. I think, Mayana, you really laid out a lot of important points, and so I'm not going to belabor the point. I just want everyone to take some time to study the marriage covenant between Yah and the nation of Israel. There's a lot of scholarship out there about that because on Mount Sinai, we as a people were being married to him. And then when we were exiled, some say a divorce happened and now he's gathering us back to him. So I would encourage people to study that. I also would encourage people to try to find a positive community that can help guide you through relationships. And most of all, especially for the sisters, please develop your own personal relationship with Yah so that you know what to expect and you feel comfortable asking for it. Yah brought you with a price. He married Israel, and so you shouldn't just be something carelessly thrown around. If we want to see marriage sacred in our society, we as Hebrews have to start treating it as sacred because as we go, the nations go. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, sisters, for all the prayers and support, and I'll say shalom.
Shalom, sis. Shalom. Thank you to all the callers that are patiently waiting in the wings. We're going to open the phone lines up now that we're coming on the 10 o'clock hour. So who do we have on the line?
All right, let's go to 347-303. You're live.
Shalom, can you hear me?
Yes.
Shalom.
Shalom, we can hear you. Welcome to the conversation.
This is Sister Aisha. Shalom, and I am so glad to be coming after Only Love and Mayana. It was I who had a little mini debate with a brother from the UPK, which virginity was brought up, and the whole thing started under the premise of child support and him urging women on social media not to take these men off these child support cases. And the thing about it is that the child support issue comes up once again when someone is not taking accountability for the family that they made. And that goes on behalf of women and men. And the thing about it is that, you know, child support, like Mayana just said, would not be an issue if you supported the child that you had, that you sired. And as for the woman, if she's the one who's the non-custodial parent, she's taking care of her child as well. The thing about it is that, you know, this whole idea, and this is what I found in some Israelite settings, I'm not going to say all, but quite a few of them, is that I'm against marriage license or certificate because of Moorish science or teachings of the Moors, and I don't want to be under the jurisdiction of this government, even though you're born with a birth certificate, which puts you under this government's jurisdiction, but I'm not going there. But these men learn constitutional law, which there's nothing wrong with that, because we should be learning more law to protect ourselves, and a lot of times our people are railroaded in the penal system and in the judicial system because we don't. But this whole thing of jurisdiction is the reason why some of these brothers are saying, well, I don't want a marriage license or a marriage quote-unquote certificate. So therefore, they leave the women in their lives unaccounted for. They leave the children in their lives non-legitimated, and I'm going to use the word non-legitimated. So therefore, here it is now. This child has maybe the father signed the birth certificate, maybe he didn't. I don't know in certain cases. But then it's like now there's no accountability, as Imanami said earlier, no protection for the women or the children. And I think Only Love touched on it. If Yah wrote down his vow to us, which was our laws, our statutes, who we are, who are the brothers in our lives that think that they don't have to do the same for the women that they impregnate and call wives? There is no such thing as a lay-down marriage anywhere in the Torah, and I've heard non-Messianic and Messianic Israelite men with this nonsense. There is no such thing as a marriage where you just lay down and they come with Rebecca and Isaac and somebody took somebody to his mother's tent and that's it. No, it's not. If that was the case in the story with Dinah and Jacob's daughter, her brothers would have not been in such the fury they were in to kill a whole village of men behind the disrespect of their sister. This is wrong and it needs to stop. And we, you know, the issue of child support and all these other things would not come up if there was proper ketubas. If the leaders in Israel, and I'm not taking the onus off of individual men and women, what we do with our lives, but the leaders in Israel promoting this nonsense, and that's what contributes to it. There needs, and the thing about it is that we talk about nation building. Like Sister Yamala said, I don't know if she's on the line tonight, but she said a very wise thing. We are a nation of families. If our family structures are not correct, then how are we building any nation? How are we being restored if we're not even doing what Yah commands? So the thing about it is that whole thing of laying down and I don't have to support you if I don't like the way you look anymore and that crap is a load of garbage, and too many Israelite men do it. And I'm going to speak more. I know I was the one in the debate about the child support with the brother from the UPK, and he's telling me all this nonsense, and then he brings up, oh, none of you women are with the first men you've been with, so, you know, you'd be stoned if we were in the days of the Old Testament. No. In the Old Testament, there were divorces. No, not stoned. If you married a woman and you knew she wasn't a virgin, she's not going to be stoned. There were divorces if a man found something unclean in her. When a woman is stoned is when she and that man have committed adultery, and both parties would have been stoned, not just the woman. What we do is we want to come into Israel with some churchy, New Testament values in our mind. See, first thing, and I think the first sister that spoke, our mentality has to change. It's not just reading the scriptures, but we have to have a Hebraic sense of mentality. And I admit I didn't, because I didn't understand. So we got this churchy way in our mind, even though we're trying to reject that, but it's still in our head, and we try to apply that. There's no spiritual marriage. Marriage was the union of two people, two physical people, and a physical marriage and two physical families. In some churches, you got women, they're drooling over the pastor, they're drooling over the bishop who's already married, and because in these situations there's no polygyny, you got these secret marriages, and some Israelites or spiritual marriages in people's minds, and some Israelites come into Israel with the same garbage. You cannot be married to somebody who is already married to somebody else. That is a load of crap. And if any woman is going for that, she feel free to call me, because I will talk to her out of it, because I see too many women in Christianity ruin their lives. But like I said, I'm going to leave it there, because I don't want to get hyped up like Ema said. We will be talking about this some more. I will say our women need to practice seeing themselves as the jewels and the rubies that they are, despite their past, and understanding that if Yah, I'm going to reiterate what both Mayana and Only Love said, if Yah valued our people as ragtag and as disobedient as we was to give us commandments and put oaths on paper and our commandments and our Constitution on paper because he loved us and respected us, then we got to require the same thing of these brothers. That's where sisters have to step up, and I'm going to leave it there. Dehu.
Thank you so much for that. Just carrying me through all that passion, all that information. We appreciate you. It's true that we are allowing the men to, and I don't want to make this conversation about what the men have done wrong, because the men are definitely in some cases giving bad information, but in the age of information, there is room for accountability. Women do have the ability to read. If the brother tells you that the scripture says something, if it's not there, don't repeat it. Don't follow it. Ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be sure about what's being told to you. Like, for example, the account of Rebecca, this is exactly how it goes down. Yeah, in the tent, out the tent, boom, she became his wife. But if you start the account at that point, then it's easy to get that idea. But the fact is, many, many things happen before that. The father makes the decision that the son needs to have a wife. He sends an envoy to go and retrieve this wife. This woman then has to go with the envoy to her family, and a discussion is had, and dowry and bride price is exchanged. And she is asked, does she want to go? And then she comes. Isaiah hasn't picked this woman, hasn't seen this woman. He literally has no part in the entire transaction because his father has put all of these things into motion. Her father has accepted the transaction, and now a marriage is afoot. it's not just Isaac woke up and there was a woman in his backyard and then in the tent, out the tent, bang, they got married. That didn't happen. No matter how many times they try to tell you that. Exodus 22:16 does not mean if a man enticing, there's never a time when enticing is a good thing. If a man entices a woman who is not betrothed and lays with her, he surely endows her to be his wife. That tells you that if he does this thing, he now has this other step he still must do. He has surely endowed her to become his wife. He still has to go back to her father, and the father still gets to say yes or no. So that lets you know him just laying with her didn't do anything. You still need to get the father's permission. We are a nation of order. You cannot hump your way into a holy covenant. And this is what we're looking at now. Is it because we're not willing to be ruled by Torah, ruled by the Most High, ruled by these orders and this order and prescription, that we now have these marriages that are so easily dissolved and disposed of? It's like everybody wants to play oopsie. My bad, I'll take it back. You can't, and that's what's happening. Yo says, how can I divorce him? Was I really married to him to begin with? It's always that the sisters want to know after the fact. When we tell them, the Torah tells you this is what marriage looks like, they don't listen to us. They get very excited because the man has paid attention to them, and then they go with that. And then when they find that there's nothing they can do, there's no Torah to stand on, then it's like, well, what do we do? What do we do now? And they're looking for Torah solutions, but they don't have a Torah problem. But we're going to go to the phone lines and take the next caller. Caller, welcome to the conversation.
All right, let's go to 678-467. You're live.
Hello? Shalom.
Hey, Shalom, welcome to the conversation.
Hi, everybody. So I'm sure Sister Oni Love is probably gone right now, but she's the one who introduced me to this radio. So I just want to say thank you for all being here, and it's just it's interesting hearing the conversation. First of all, I want to say that for me, I believe that Israel is anybody who accepts a personal relationship with Yahushua HaMashiach. That's how you become Israel. So I just saying, like, I didn't know all this was going on, because in my mindset, when you come to Yahushua, when you come into Torah, you're coming into Torah with, you're striving to come into Torah with an obedient heart. And I know we all make mistakes and things like that, but I feel like a lot of things that you guys are talking about, it is true, and we need to talk about it because it is realistic. But at the same time, I feel like people are dwelling too much on that. And they're going from the world government and laws, and then now they're saying, forget about that, and I'm just going to go to Torah. And they're using Torah as like some rule book, which, I mean, it is a rule book, but at the same time, let's not forget our own personal relationship with Yahushua, and let's not forget the Holy Spirit leading us to do things. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is dowry. Earlier you guys were talking about dowry, and I do, my parents are actually from West Africa, and so we kind of do have a dowry system, but the way dowry is being implemented now is kind of like, somebody did say, like, I'm buying you kind of thing, but it was never meant to be that way. It was meant to be like a gift to the parents for raising the child, and also a gift to the daughter, just like as you guys were mentioning Rebecca. Rebecca, in a sense, she was giving a dowry, and so was her father and her brother. So I think that's kind of where they get that system from without knowing what they're doing. And also, I wanted to talk about the whole contract situation. I think people forget that there are many levels to Torah. There's the standard level that is just there to give us like the blueprint, what is realistic, what is on earth. And then there is the one that is higher, explaining like our personal relationship with Messiah and you know how much Yah loves us and things like that. So I love the fact that somebody mentioned that Yah has a covenant with his male children through circumcision. It is a physical covenant that you can see, but it's also spiritual, because that's where the New Testament comes in, explaining the Torah, because the New Testament is not different from the Torah. It's the same thing that just goes into greater depth. But because we don't understand Torah, we think, oh, it's something, not we necessarily, but people think, oh, it's totally different. But once you come into Torah, you realize that the New Testament is just a more detailed, a more detailed version of the Torah. So I believe that you must have a spiritual marriage with somebody. And for me, what that means is having God ordain your marriage, having God give you the wisdom, giving you the insight through your community, through your spiritual parents, through your own personal relationship with the Holy Spirit to tell you this is your spouse, this is not your spouse. And then I also believe that it is important to have a written covenant on it, and you know what they do in the court or whatever. That's what I believe about certain situations. I think that the Torah teaches there's a physical that you have to do, and then there's also a spiritual that you have to do. You can't. Many people, I feel like when they're coming to Torah, they're forgetting the spiritual aspects of stuff. They're forgetting that before any of this, our main focus is to be with Yah. And especially, I want to talk about sisters, because me personally, I've always thought about marriage ever since I was a little girl, ever since I've been in the Sunday church and everything. But when I came into Torah and with a congregation that teaches me, I feel like I've thought about marriage more. And a lot of the things that I watch about the Hebrew Jewish culture, they get married all the time. It's so young. It's like what another sister mentioned is that the three most important things in a person's life, the day they were born, marriage, and their death. So it's like, what's the next step? Marriage. And I'm at that age where everybody's asking me. But like Sister Oni Love said, the most important thing is let us be focused on being married to God. Let us be. We need to get to a point as sisters where we can see God or see Yahushua as our husband, as our best friend, as our rabbi, our teacher, or everything. Let's not see a man. I remember I used to personally pray, God, I want a husband not because of the way the world wants a husband, but I want a husband to teach me Torah. And I thought about it. That was really silly of me, because Yahushua, they called him rabbi, they called him teacher. Who knows the Torah better than him? And who knows me better than him? So we need to be desiring everything that sisters are craving from a man. We need to be craving that from Yahushua. So he should become our everything. And then in that way, women also know the Torah for themselves. So they don't have to be lied by brothers or whatever the case may be. And I just think that if a brother is lying to you about that, that's foolishness. You're back in Egypt. You're back in Babylon, just clothed with the name Israel or clothed with the name child of God, and I think that's very misleading. So I think that the most important thing is that people need to go back to Yahushua, need to be focused on who he is and allowing him to teach us Torah, because a lot of times we even read the Torah with our own mindset. As much as somebody mentioned it as well, as much as we say we're out of the church, out of the Sunday churches and things like that, we still have that mentality. We still have the mentality of the world, and we're coming into this reading the Torah in the same way when we need to be asking, yeah, how do you want me to understand it? Because a lot of the laws for Torah were for people who were striving to be obedient, people who didn't have all this craziness going on. We have a lot of craziness, and instead of just trying to figure out all of our craziness with laws, we need to first ask, how he wants us to fix our craziness so that it won't transpire the next time. It said that the Torah makes you see how flawed you are, and Yahushua makes us see that we can become perfected, we can become brand new. So I think the Torah is definitely there, and it's definitely our lifeline, but at the same time, we need to be asking the real maker of the Torah how to really use this in our lives instead of trying to figure it out. And yes, we are there for one another, trying to help one another, but I think that we should just keep our eyes on Yahushua. And a husband, I feel like a husband should not be what is on our minds. And I know it's easier said than done, but just focus on your relationship with God. Don't go around dating people. Don't worry about a courtship. Don't worry about all these things. If it means you're going to be single for the rest of your life or until you're 50, then so be it. Because Yahushua...
Sis, I know that you're really excited, and we really appreciate a lot of the things that you're saying, because we do want to think about keeping marriage sacred, and keeping marriage sacred is keeping sex sacred, keeping the self sacred, keeping Torah sacred. So you're making a lot of excellent points, and I encourage you to stay on the line, because we're going to take the next two callers, and if there's more that you want to share with us, we will bring you right back into the conversation. Fair enough?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've already put her on
Lost
hold.
her?
No, we got it. She's still on hold. She's on hold right now. Let's move on to the next caller, though. Let's go to 410-488. You're live.
Hallel Yahuwah. Hallel Yahuwah. Shalom Mishpoka. Shalom Akoth Mayana. Shalom Akoth Imuna. And Shalom Akoth One Love. And Shalom Aki Sal. I just wanted to just clarify what I was commenting on earlier in the conversation. I went back to the post, and I'm seeing that it's saying, questions about how much or how little is required in a marriage continue to frame how we construct those conjugal unions. Our notions about marriage inform how we get into and out of these covenants. Ultimately, we must ask, is marriage still sacred? And, when I look at that, and at the post it says, is marriage still sacred, with a big question mark in red. Now, what I'm seeing from my understanding is that just the word, quote-unquote, marriage, and I'm taking that to correspond or to parallel with berith, or covenant, quote-unquote. And the covenant or the berith that Yahuwah had gave Yisrael from the inception, from the beginning, when we came out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. It has not dissipated. It still is. So in that context, what I'm saying is that, quote-unquote, marriage or berith still is sacred. It has never changed, because that is what Yahuwah gave to us, gave to his people, Yisrael. However, our portion of it, what we did with that, quote-unquote, marriage with the covenant portion is crazy. And us trying to come back as we are awakening and coming out of, comatose and coming out of, spiritual insanity, mental insanity, physical insanity, whatever the situation may be. As long as we are being guided by the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Yahuwah, with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might, to return unto Yahuwah, I believe that Yahuwah will look on that and be pleased with us trying to do the very best we can to be still, quote-unquote, sacred, or to still be under, quote-unquote, the berith of Yahuwah, until we have all of the clarification that is necessary at the time of the renewed covenant, the berith kadashah, which is something that we are in holding and we are waiting for it to come. So in and of itself, the berith or the marriage that Yahuwah gave unto Yisrael, from what I read and what I've seen, is left on record for us. Even though all these translations and stuff sometimes they can become a little discombobulated. I believe that what's in the narratives that's written down for us in all these different scripts, those writings, the Ketubim, the Toros, the berith. Anything and everything that Yahuwah gave unto Yisrael still is, always will be sacred, quote-unquote, holy, quote-unquote, distinctive, quote-unquote, distinguished Kodesh, because Yahuwah said that Yahuwah Kodesh Yisrael, Yahuwah is the Holy One of Yisrael, and he told us to be Kodesh, to be sacred, holy, distinguished, and distinct unto him. It's a choice even in it was in the days of old, our ancestors, and it still is a choice today as we become awakened to whatever degree it is for us to seek Yahuwah and to return as we have understanding. And everybody's understanding is not going to be the same as the next person. So as I in whatever marriage that or bereath comes my way in the physical sense, I have a choice to seek Jehovah and that foundation with all my heart, with all my soul, and all my might. I have no control over what the next person does in Israel, in the next camp, in the next tribe. I have no control over them. Hopefully what I do in righteousness will be an influence, for them to seek Jehovah's face. So, I shrink back from being painted with a broad brush on what, the other folks, quote unquote, Anashim and Yisrael do concerning whatever it is that they're choosing to do. Because ultimately whatever we do is our responsibility. And we cannot, have the reins on somebody else's mind. We have no legislation over, what they choose or choose not to do concerning any matter, whether it be a physical, quote-unquote, covenant or marriage or anything else. So what Jehovah gave us always has been sacred, kodesh, distinctive, distinguished. However, what we do with it as people is a total another different thing, and it's always going to be a choice, just like it was in the times of old. Hallelujah.
Thank you so much for your call, sis, and for taking the time to clarify your position. We have another call on the line, because it's true. The Most High's marriage covenant is sacred, and we continue to defile that which is sacred. Does anybody else want to say something before we go to the next caller? Imana Ami, Sister Muna, Sister Malaka, Sister Shanti, do you have anything to add before we go to the next caller? We're already 20 minutes past the 10 o'clock hour, so we are going to be winding down soon.
This is Malaka. I would just like to read a scripture real quick. The scripture I want to share is Hosea 2:19, and we know the prophet Hosea is living an example before the people of Yah's love for his people Israel. And in Hosea 2:19 it reads, "And I will betroth thee unto me forever. Yea, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness and in judgment and in loving kindness and in mercy." And the reason I wanted to read that is because I just wanted to say, I love the way that so many, the callers and then some on the panel have been sharing examples from how Yahuwah has orchestrated his marriage ketubah or contract with his people, and how he governs himself in that administrating of his contract to his bride. And he says of what he's doing, he says, "I'm betrothing thee forever." And he says, and I'm doing it in righteousness, in judgment, in loving kindness, and in mercy. And I want to just submit that these are the characteristics in which a marriage contract or ketubah or marriage itself should be entered into on the part of the husband. And then the wife, of course, she gets the opportunity to respond to this man or not respond to him. But definitely because of the example that the Most High has supplied for us in how a marriage arrangement should be made, how he performed his covenant and just revealed his covenant to his bride is that's something that we learn from. We gather information from that, and we use that in our own lives. And I appreciate what the sister was saying about, having that personal relationship with the Most High, so that you're able to discern. You're able to utilize wisdom in your life. And so I just wanted to submit that scripture to say, if a brother's not willing to give you something that protects your personal rights, if he's not willing to give you a covenant, a contract, and an announcement publicly before your family, that he's willing to, do these things for you and give you the opportunity to agree with these things publicly, then is he really executing this towards you in righteousness? Is he executing this offer to you in loving kindness? Is he executing it in mercy? Because he should be concerned about your future and about what rights are going to be afforded to you should something happen to him, or just as his wife in the community. So with that, I'm going to yield.
This is Sister Shanti.
Okay, now would you put me in the...
We can hear you, Shanti. The mic is yours.
Yes, I just wanted to say something real quick. I came here late, but just real quick on the child support thing. I do know a couple of brothers who were put on child support based on people being in the woman's ear. I know people. I know some men who were actually wanted to marry the woman they got pregnant, or whatever they wanted to marry him, but a lot of the family members or people in the woman's ear said, okay, well, you should go, try this other guy when the guy they, had the baby with was just fine. They weren't mistreating the woman or anything. So there are certain circumstances where the child support is put on a man as a punishment because of somebody in the woman's ear, even though the man was very much supporting and wanting to marry and all that stuff. So I just wanted to put that out there just real quick.
Okay, this is even the Army.
Okay, I want to say there's always going to be, exceptions to the rule, but the exception should never negate the rule. I mean, my brother was also at one point put on child support, but because he has been supporting his children all along, not only was he taken off of child support, but he has custodial custody. He has custodial custody of all three of my nephews. I just went into court and put all the papers together, and my brother walked in, walked out with all three of his boys in no child support case. And it just is what it is. Because, like Ashanti said, he had all along been taking care of his children, and he could prove it. The court can't do anything about it. Can't make you do what you're already doing.
That's right.
Even the Army, the floor is yours. We have two callers on the line, or three callers now. But even the Army, of course, the floor is yours.
Okay. Again, everybody has the right to their opinion. I would say that this craziness that we're talking about has always existed. This is why Yah destroyed the earth the first time, because it really got real crazy, And if we look throughout the historical record, we've seen that it's gotten crazy quite a few times. In fact, it's been nothing but crazy when we really look at it. I do say that I understand that there are some people who they must have a personal relationship with the Most High, and I can respect that. However, the laws that Yah gave us and handed down to us were physical laws meant for us to do them. You remember, we said after everyone, all that you command us we will do, and it was something that we were supposed to do. There's nothing spiritual about you helping your neighbor when his ox is in the ditch. You can make everything, if you're looking into mysticism, can have a spiritual aspect to it. But there are some real things. Not moving your neighbor's landmark and not sowing diverse seeds and not putting the ox and the donkey together to plow. Those are physical things. And the thing about it is that I know that we have a tendency to put spiritual on everything that we do when some of these things are just so practical. The Torah is a very practical thing. It talks about everyday life. It talks about the things that you do every day. It talks about, if the man comes to work for you, don't hold his wages. Give it to him that night. Don't take the upper millstone to pledge. These are physical things that affect our everyday life, and we forget that the Torah was made for our everyday life, to govern our everyday life. The ones that got, if you want to talk about on the spiritual levels, the ones I would think in our society, if it were molded after the way that Yah instructed us to mold it, the ones who would have the real spiritual relationship would be the priests and the Levites who come in and make the offerings and have to come in a certain way, and they can't come in any old kind of way. And what the pieces that they have to make smoke on the altar, that starts to get to me into the spiritual realm, real spiritual realm, if you want to put it up, if you want to do it that way. And I'm not taking away from anybody's spirituality. I'm not saying by that, I'm not negating that an individual can have a spiritual thing. I've gone through this myself, where I feel very, for the want of a better word, spiritual. But I think what happens is that we place a lot of emphasis on the spirituality of the thing and forget that there's a very practical application of this law. There's very, very practical application of this law. And like I said, it's not that we're putting too much emphasis on it, but these are the problems that exist in our community. And these are problems that we'll have to resolve if we're going to be a united people, a people that are truly righteous before the Most High. So I would say, again, these things that we seem to be hashing over and, trying to straighten out the differences that we have between us, it is only to make us a more unified and a more dignified community, and a community that is more in tune with giving praise to the Most High collectively, as well as individually. So with that, I relinquish the floor. Zehu.
Hallelujah.
So, is that you, Mona? You want to say something?
Ema got me over here in a hallelujah party as I'm drinking my tea, getting ready for sleep. But
that's right. We are coming across the 11 o'clock hour. Let's get some of these callers out so we can give our last thoughts and wrap some of this up. What do you think?
What you're saying is that's exactly what I wanted to say, Ema. There's something we step away from the very real and present things that we can do in favor of something that we can intellectualize or spiritualize. And the benefit is in the doing. You see what I'm saying? The government that we have to have spiritually is our unseen thoughts that manifest into our actions and our behaviors and our personalities. So if we want to go into spiritual realm, we need to look at the things that we're doing, we're thinking, we're attracting to ourselves on a daily basis and govern that. One more thing is that in the very beginning, the Most High said it to Cain. He said, sin crouches at the door, but you can overcome it. This is what we're battling with. The stories that we see going down throughout the ages, as someone said, this conversation that we're having now is not a new one. So when you had everything in order and you had all of the things and you had all of the law, you had Moshe there, you had the burning bush, you still went off. What's that? And once we get to the what's that, then we can hone in on what exactly we need to be doing from day to day. And as Ema said, and as Moshe said in the book of Deuteronomy, it's not hard. It's not far. You don't got to go on a spaceship. You don't got to go scuba diving. It's very nigh unto you. But I'll relinquish the mic.
That was the voice of Amunia Sayal. Thank you very much for that. We're going to go ahead and take the next caller. Sal, who do we have on the line?
All right, let's go to 678-497. You're live.
Shalom, Mr. Pekai. Shalom, everyone. First, I want to give all praise to the Most High. There's no other before him, beside him, or after him. I love the conversation that's going on today. I actually kind of got in like maybe just an hour ago, so I know I missed a little bit. I was supposed to set my watch for it. But anyway, I came in on the ketubah, and I absolutely love the agreement with the ketubah and everything as far as it being a covenant. I definitely see how that's a covenant that's in relationship, that's actually similar to how the covenant the Most High established with Israel. I definitely see the very important thing within the ketubah, and I pray that all our sisters actually see or try to find a man that actually takes these commandments to heart. And what I mean by it to heart, like they actually believe in everything that's being written in Torah. And the reason why I say that because there's one commandment that's given. It's called "Don't take the name in vain." And if we understand what a ketubah or the contract or the covenant is, it's very similar or it's set up very similar to how a business contract is set up. You have two parties that's coming together, where it's two companies or two organizations or two families that's coming together to actually make an agreement to merge companies, similar to how an empire is similar, somewhat form or whatsoever. But I do know that you issue out a contract. There's rules or regulations what we would consider like oaths or vows or whatsoever. And then there's certain like either stocks or items or money as we would consider a dowry that's being exchanged in between there. But the most important thing that I do see on the covenant is the fact that the Most High's name is written on there. Okay, everything is supposed to be written as far as when you deal with Israel, as far as dealing with contracts or whatsoever. All we have, and there's a saying that you can say that the word is my bond. With us making a vow, and if we understand our roles of how we issue vows, especially that's how it's listed in Numbers 30, we can see that there's that anything that we normally would say that is usually taken as a vow or taken as an oath, whether it's good or bad. So we have to watch what we say. It's actually held accountable to us. So when you find a man or when you find a suitable husband, you have to make sure that he actually takes that name to heart, because that's all that Israel has. That's all that the Most High. That's really what the Most High has as far as his representation onto the earth. So if you're a Hebrew and you're using his name, that's your seal. That's your, I swear to God, moment or whatsoever. So we have to take that, because that's punishable by death. So when we take contrast or something like that, and knowing the topic saying is marriage sacred, we have to take everything about a marriage, or everything, including the vows, as sacred. I do know we kind of, halfway do them a lot or whatsoever, because we feel a lot of us actually don't take, what the Most High's words to heart or whatsoever. It's not really in our heart, so we just going by the books, or what we would say consider plain church. We just going by the motions or whatsoever, and a lot of people are not taking this into heart. And it actually is scaring off a lot of sisters out of this walk, because and me and Maisha, and I know she's listening right now, Shalom, Miyaka, but we did a video not too long ago on spiritual molestation. Okay, and if really don't know what spiritual molestation is, like, if you understand the word molestation, you know that that's kind of like somebody who's going after a child, as far as like preying onto a child for sexual favors or whatsoever. I kind of see that in the same realm, in a spiritual sense, because we're going into a spiritual sense. A lot of women who come into these walks are seeking after men with knowledge, seeking after some kind of wisdom or understanding. And so when they're coming into this walk or whatsoever, a lot of people, and it hurts to say, but a lot of Hebrew men actually prey onto these women that are coming into the walk or whatsoever that doesn't really have too much knowledge of Torah, but are seeking diligently for the Most High or something like that, and they see this in these guys or whatsoever who seem to portray that they do have some kind of knowledge, but they really don't. Because I asked a lot of women who are actually talking to a lot of guys or in courtships or whatsoever. Okay, well, what do y'all know about a ketubah? Or what do y'all know about, is he teaching you about the stars that you record? And they don't know nothing about a ketubah. They don't know nothing about the covenant that they're being issued into. All they know is just that, you have to find a covering, and if you have sex, that's law. And like Sister was saying, the father still has the option to say yes or no. But you still have to pay that dowry, that virgin dowry, if he says no, whether she says yes, whether he says yes or no. So, but a lot of us are not practicing that. A lot of sisters are not even knowing that has to go about. A lot of them don't know about a dowry that has to be paid or whatsoever. So marriage is not really being taken or really not being taken serious these days or so, and it's sad or whatsoever. And kind of similar back to the spiritual molestation, I see a lot of when I'm seeing a lot of guys coming in approaching, it is scaring off a lot of sisters. It's scaring off a lot of them out of the faith or out of the walk, because they're viewing us as somebody who just simply preys on women and actually hoarding women. We've seen no different from the nations, and we're supposed to be set apart. Our marriages are supposed to be honorable. We supposed, like a lot, you see Christianity or Islam or whatsoever, and a lot of their traditions come from our from Torah, or come from our heritage or whatsoever. So a lot of nations have been looking at Hebrews just looking at Hebrews traditions in the way they go about life, not just marriage, but just how they go about life, period, and trying to mimic how we act or how we are. So we do seem set apart from the other nations, where the nations want to attach to us. But now we seem like we want to go back to the other nations. And I'm not going to really take up all your time, though, but this is a very important topic that actually needs to be put out into Israel. And actually, men need to actually step up and actually take on their roles, because the women, they actually performing their roles in society. But they also have to play on to the role as a men as well, because a lot of men are just really not looking at the women's role and kind of like degrading them. I mean, and one last quick example, and I'm gonna get off. But if we actually look at the role, the roles of the women that are being degraded, such as like cooking or cleaning, we just if a woman doesn't cook or a woman doesn't clean or whatsoever, her man loses status in society. I mean, just think about it. Okay, so if a woman comes in and she cleans the house, she's the one who. I mean, yes, the man pays for everything as far as in the house, but she comes in. Who's the one who's doing the decorating? The woman. Who's the one who's keeping everything clean? The woman. Who's the one who keeps the kitchen clean and the bathroom clean? Those are the two main important things that people come in and they judge your whole household off. Is the bathroom and the kitchen. The bathroom is to tell them whether they can stay long enough to eat there, and the bathroom is whether they can stay long enough over the night, just because so they can have somewhere to relieve. But if those two things aren't really clean, then nobody's gonna really try to even come over that much or even stay over longer. Now your man is losing social status because nobody's coming over. If you're cooking, you keeping the whole household in order. The man gets his strength from eating, depending on what the woman cooks. Men, if you have a man who don't really cook, I mean, like me, I eat. If it was up to me, I would definitely be obese. But if it wasn't for my wife, she said that she would sneak vegetables into my food just so I can have vegetables. She'll cook some of my favorite meal or put vegetables in it and make it taste like my favorite meal just so I can have vegetables or get the nutrients that I have. That's my wife. That's somebody who I need. That's her role to keep my household strong. That's her role to keep the beam stepped up into it, so I can go out and perform what I need to do in order to keep my household in order or to build my empire. As Sis was saying, the nation builds. That's the whole point, and we have to get back to the whole, order and roles and stuff like that. The man needs to step up because a lot of women out here these days. They are tired of being in the head all the time or being in charge or being the lead, but they kind of have to because a lot of men are just stepping back or just going out here making babies or whatsoever and not really taking marriage seriously or taking the covenant seriously and stuff like that. Or like, what if the Most High did that? Again, Queen, I was making a lot of good points. Queen was saying like the Most High, his covenant was perfect. We messed up. So that covenant is still there. When you break a marriage vow, you don't change your vows. You just change the spouse. Either the spouse change or you get a new spouse. But you're gonna go back with the exact same vows or the exact same covenant or exact same oath as the same thing. So that's all I want to say and stuff like that. So shalom and please have some more of these. I will have some more of these topics, please.
Thank you so much for the support. You made a lot of excellent points. The idea that we have learned to devalue some of the domestic roles that women used to occupy and that we have devalued those as being less than and no longer important and shaming women out of this very important function in the home. That's an excellent point, and I really like that you gave a shout-out to your wife. Hallelujah. We have another caller on the line. Let's open the phone lines, take our last caller for the evening. Caller, the mic is yours.
All right, let's go to the last caller. Let's go to 657-667. You're live.
Hey, how y'all doing? This is Dean from California. How you doing?
Hey, shalom, Daniel. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes, blessings. Yeah, I was listening to the topic, what you guys were saying, like, is marriage still sacred? And, I would think to answer that question was like, is it sacred? Is it still sacred to who? To God, I would say yes, it's still sacred. Even going back to history predating the Christian religion and a lot of other religions, even if you go back to the 42 laws of Ma'at, which dated years and thousands of years ago, God even said then that, thou shalt not commit adultery. So I would say to God, marriage is still, real important. But then when you ask the question to people, because I heard you talking about the Kataba, a lot of people don't even take that, when you even when you ask women today for, I want to have a prenup, people not trying to hear that no more. So when I think of prenups, I always think about katabas as well. When you say, okay, I'm agree to, do this to the woman, take care of her like that. So I don't think marriage to a lot of people, they don't look at it as a sacred thing anymore. They look at it as a business arrangement. Like, for example, you have a lot of people who practice polygamy or whatever, and they say to them, You know, it's not about the sacredness of it. They say like you got all these women that's gonna be unmarried, so if they all share a man, they can all be married and all be taken care of. You see what I'm saying? So you got a lot of people looking at marriage, you know, even in historical places, according to what customs are you looking at marriage. A lot of them don't even take marriage as sacred from the very beginning, even back in a lot of the history, you know. And you got to go back according to, you know, the culture of the people you're talking about. If you're talking about one section of people, because you know the earth is a big place, and you got different people in different parts of the earth. Marriage practices are totally different and whatnot, you know, and stuff like that. I haven't even heard of a lot of, like, you know, our beliefs or whatever and different things. So, you know, my answer would be like, is marriage still sacred? I would question again, who are we talking to? First of all, like what sex people
community? According
is it still
to
sacred to who?
According to tonight's topic, it's the Israelite community, which we're speaking specifically about what's going on in our community. That's how the topic was introduced. We're looking at the behaviors of the people in our community. We're looking at the behaviors of the Most High chosen. We're looking at the behaviors in the greater melanated community and saying, do we still value? Are we still keeping what it was meant to be sacred, or are we defiling it? Like you said, there's a lot of people that know and a lot of people that are looking, but even if we look at our contemporary societies, the greater laws say that same-sex marriage is okay. Now, is that are we keeping marriage sacred by allowing something that is not prescribed in our Torah and giving it the title marriage? Are we still considering our marriage as sacred when we don't want to involve our elders, when we don't consider this a marriage of families and we're thinking only about ourselves? I like him, he likes me, he makes me feel good, she makes me, she stimulates me. Are we too individualistic and we have forgotten what the Most High's intention was for marriage? Doesn't the Most High say, and why has two become one if not to bring forth righteous seed? The Most High told us why he allowed us to have marriage. He told us what it's supposed to be about. Because the rest of the question was, and I get it, callers have seen maybe the flyer, maybe they heard the first part, but the second part was, or is every man doing what is right in his or her own eyes? We see the whole book of Judges, and then the people go back to doing what they want to do. We know what the law is. We know what the Most High said was sacred, but are we still doing what we want to do? That's the question. What are your thoughts,
By the way, Mariana, got a message from Anonymous Hebrew. He's listening to the show. He's letting me know that sisters that he wanted to let me know that you guys are doing an excellent job. All the sisters doing an excellent job. Continue.
Shout out to Anan. We appreciate you, Aki. Is there anybody? Is the caller still on the line? Does the caller want to focus his response to this clarified idea of what our topic is about tonight? Is the caller still there?
Hey, how you doing? You guys had me on mute. I was trying to talk, but yeah,
okay.
That's what I was saying. Like, yeah, that's what I was saying. I definitely agree. Like, when you're talking about to the Jews and stuff like that. That's why I was saying, just trying to phrase the question when I came in. I was like, when you say is marriage still sacred? To God, it's still sacred. But like you said, in 2018, a lot of people, like you were saying earlier, they look at marriage more so, instead of a sacred thing, more so as a business thing is what I was saying. So, like when it comes down to the prenups or the katabas and stuff like that, that's more business, like, what they say. And they look at stuff like outdated, and they don't respect culture anymore. So now you got a people now that, like, marriage is almost obsolete. They're cohabitating, they're having children out of wedlock. And they don't regard and stuff like that. They're facing, and that's why I said again, if we're only talking about Jewish people, I'm talking about the world conscious the whole world should be under God or whatever. You know what I mean, stuff like that. But but they don't know who they are. So I think we talking about a lost people, and this is why they when you talk about sacred, they don't even have a relationship with God. So how can they have a relationship with one another? You know, and I think that's where the loss is in the sacredness and stuff like that, wherein the people have forgotten who they're originally married to, which is God. And so, you know, if they don't respect their relationship with him, I don't see how they can respect the relationship with one another.
That's a great point. Is there anyone on the panel that wants to respond to the points that the caller has brought out? We're coming down on the 11 o'clock hour, so we're going to wind down and get our last thoughts. But is there anyone who wants to address the points that the caller has brought out? The mic is yours. Amuna, Ima, Malaka, y'all still awake over there?
Yeah, I mean, what the caller just said, the last portion of what the caller he said some very interesting. Oh, sorry, Ima, you can go ahead.
No, go right ahead. I just was responding.
No, the latter portion for me of what the caller just said, that people, it's difficult to have a relationship with one another because you don't have a relationship with the Creator. And I would have to agree. We've lost touch with ourselves, what it is that we're supposed to do. We've, as you said, we've drifted off into individualism and not realizing that it's only as a collective that we can actually return to actually function. You see what I'm saying? Because we're a body, and so there are all of these divides. I believe someone said it earlier. It has a lot. I think it was Sister Ashanti. It has a lot to do with the way in which culture and society has been shaped in the hands of man, and more specifically, this masculine mentality of, you know, domination and suppression of the counterpart, which is the feminine principle. We have to address these things because this is what is making, you know, the woman say it's better for me to go outside because at least out there I'll get paid. You see what I'm saying? When you're doing jobs in spaces that are necessary for the nation, for your family, for your community, for yourself, but it's not valued. You understand what I'm saying? And so as we continue to have this conversation, for those who have stuck with us, thank you, to realize it's not always going to be roses and peachy. We have to dig out all of these things that have been, you know, corrupting us from the very core in order to really, as Ima said, build and be substantial in the community, in the world going forward. So with that, I'll give it back to Sister Mayana. We had the floor open to Ima Naami. Ima Naami, you wanted to speak?
Actually, no. I just was saying that I was still awake and still here, miraculously.
Well, we appreciate you, Ima. We appreciate everything you bring to the table. I know that Ashanti has something that she would like to add to the conversation. Ashanti, the mic is.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I appreciate what the caller contributed to the conversation, and it just goes back to confirm what I was saying when I came on. We have our own ideas of biblical marriage. We don't really understand what biblical marriage is. People say, well, you know, a lot of people have a negative stigma, especially in America, on not getting married, and that negative stigma is they don't want to see marriage as a business agreement. Well, it is a business agreement or arrangement. It's the business of the kingdom. What's the business of the kingdom? Well, you have to go back and understand marriage. I'll say this, a couple of things, and then I'll leave. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. In Genesis 2, it says a man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife. Well, over here in America, especially coming into the Israelite walk, you know what we hear? We hear that a woman has to find her a covering. And that whole phrase, find her a covering, means find her a man. But in Proverbs 18, it reiterates pretty much what what Genesis 2 says. A man leaves his mother and father and cleaves to his wife. Okay, so I think we, you know, would benefit from revisiting that. You know, you have the man waiting at the pulpit for the woman to come down. But why isn't it the other way? Why isn't it the woman who's waiting at the pulpit and the man comes down? Like the man comes to find this woman and cleave. You see what I'm saying? So where is this, you know, you have to find a covering, meaning a man. Where is that in the Bible? Because I want to know. I mean, the whole spiritual covering thing, I know researched a little bit about it, and came from the charismatic movement in the 1970s. And then we just implanted this little concept or phrase into the Bible. I want anyone to show me where the whole covering means a man and where that is in the Bible. I want to know about that. And again, the Americanized domestic roles. I'll tell you this: my husband, praise Yahweh for him, he decorated our whole house. People think I did it. No, he did it. That was his vision. I supported it. Okay, he has no problem because this is his house. He takes pride in the place he's going to live and dwell and sleep. You know, so he does clean the bathroom. He does clean the kitchen. He decors the house. You know, he puts his little piece on it. I support it. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. What you think about this too? So we both run certain roles of the house. My thing is, yes, it's a business arrangement. If we understand what a business is, you know what I mean? We got to go back and look at the definition of a business. It is a business arrangement. You're there for the business of the kingdom. So again, we have our own ideas of biblical marriage. It behooves us to go back. If we say it's good for a man to find a wife, or he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing, then why is it impressed upon this woman? You know, and when the definition of sacred, you know, it's for the sanctity of who put marriage in place to begin with, and that's the Most High. So yeah, if you're not getting married based upon the notion of what the Most High has put out, you got to really question yourself and say, do I really understand what this biblical marriage is in order to know that it's sacred, or to know what sacred is? And I yield.
Look at that, Ashanti waking us all up with that one. Questioning some of these long-held ideas about the woman having no choice but to find the man for salvation purposes, and this idea of marriages becomes tied to salvation in this way. I'm sorry?
No, I just was saying,
Yeah, so the question is, this is definitely not a Torah concept, so where does the thought come from that the woman doesn't become is not valuable unless she is the wife of the man, and that the marriage no longer becomes that the two become one to bring forth righteous seed, but instead the two become one so that the woman can be of value, or the woman can have now salvation through her union with the man, and the man is in many ways and in many cases put in the stead of the Most High. So excellent point. What we're looking at, is marriage sacred? The question, and it's interesting, we get kind of stuck on the part that's in red and not the part that's right underneath it, because the question is not whether or not marriage is sacred to the Most High. The question is marriage still sacred, or have we all reverted back to doing what we think is right in our own eyes? Because the way the question is worded, it means that if the second is true, then the first has been compromised. If we have all gone back to doing what we think is righteous in our own eyes, then we have compromised the idea that marriage is sacred. Because if we really believed that marriage was sacred, we would not do what is right in our own eyes. And the conversation that we find happening far too often is we hear phrases like, the man has the right to do whatever he wants to do in his household. The man has the right to do whatever he sees fit to do. And that forgets that, no, the man has the right to maintain what the Most High already put on the books, and that's it. It's not about what the man wants or what the man likes or what the man sees fit to do, and the woman has to then yield to what the man wants. Everybody is yielding to what the Most High wants. That's what keeps marriage sacred. If we're saying marriage is sacred, it's because we're living it according to what the Most High put on record. And we're not saying that the Most High's record has to yield to what the man thinks or feels is right. Every man can do whatever he wants in his own household. How does that not lead to chaos? If every man is doing whatever he wants to do in his own household, that's not order. That is definitely the formula for chaos. We have order when there's only one law. One law, one Elohim, one power, one set of rules, one Torah. If there's only one, everybody's going to be doing the same thing, and that's what we call order. But if every man is allowed to do whatever he thinks is right in his own eyes, that's chaos. Judges tells us it's because every man thought that he could do whatever he wanted to do in his own household, and he can do whatever was right in his own eyes. That's how judges got erected. To put all these things back into order, we needed leadership. We needed one law. One lawgiver, one law interpreter, that one person that got consulted on these matters. Because this idea of, everybody doing what they want to do wasn't working. And that's what we're trying to get at. That was the point of the conversation, is to show the idea of what we're doing versus what we have been told to do, and what happens when we go left of the law. When we have the law on record. And it was so important that all of the people and sisters, this is when we very, very often we turn the mic and just look right at you. Sisters, you have to feel like you have permission to read the scriptures on your own, for yourselves, and not wait. I run to the sister's call, and she used to believe that she had to wait for the man to come and teach her, to come and read it to her and explain it to her. None of our foremothers would have done that. That's not what would have happened. And in fact, it was so important that the women knew for themselves, had that first-person experience with Torah, that every 7 years it was read to everybody. Everybody was supposed to have first-person, personal contact with Torah, man, woman, and child. It wasn't that every 7 years the men gathered and came back and gave the woman secondhand information about what they heard at Torah reading. Sisters, the reason why we're not creating sustainable marriages is because the men are the only ones studying. And we can't do anything by ourselves. If it's just women moving, nothing is being created. If it's just men, nothing is being created. I mentioned earlier about homosexual marriage. The reason most Israelites will argue against homosexual marriage is the argument is nothing gets created from that kind of union. Where there's two of one type, nothing is being created. The reason we're not moving is because we're not creating. If it's only the men, if it's only the women, no creating is happening. We need to be working together. Everybody has to be activated. You cannot deactivate the feminine principle and think we're going to go somewhere. Absolutely not. And some of these ladies are deactivating themselves and being very, very happy to be not actively involved in the creating and sustaining of our families. So that's my honest soapbox. I don't think we have any other callers. Sisters, thank you so much for staying with us all the way past the 11 o'clock hours. I'm going to go around the table and everyone give their last words, their last thoughts about this. Is marriage sacred, or has everyone gone back to doing what is right in their own eyes? I'll begin with Ashanti, and then we'll go to Sister Malaka, then to Sister Amuna, and final thoughts with Ima Naami, who will pray us out.
I'll be real quick. The last comment I said stands for my closing comments. I challenge everyone to go back and really check out biblical marriage. Check out Genesis chapter 1 and 2. I mean, in depth, because the Father gave us the beginning. The Father gave us the goal from the beginning, and we're supposed to get back to that state before the fall. We're supposed to be restored back to that state, and we can see the sacredness in it if we really go back. I mean, do Hebrew word study, meditate on Genesis 1 and 2 before the fall. Thank you, Sal. Thank you, Mayana. Thank you, Amuna. Thank you, Naami. Thank you, Angela Malaka. Thank you, Sister Only Love, and the listening audience. And I yield. Praise Yah.
Yeah, Mayana, you there?
I'm here. I gave everybody the order after Ashanti was Malaka. I was waiting for
Okay,
Malaka.
I'm sorry I missed it. Okay, Sister Malaka, and I will close with just saying that I think it's important to, I believe that marriage is still sacred because Yahuwah has instituted it as such. Yahweh has instituted it as such. However, it's mankind, it's us that treat it commonly. We treat it like it's common. We don't treat it with the special, set-apart process that Yah has given us in Torah. I want to also say that to the young women, to the women, period, who are listening, I have a more that I fellowship with who often says Torah can create a fence around you if you allow it to. And so when you have a fence is not just for keeping you in. A fence is for keeping others out who shouldn't be in. And so by studying Torah for yourself, Geishan, by allowing your parents or elders in your family to be involved in your courtship process, you are, in effect, creating a fence around you that will not allow those who shouldn't be in to come in and treat you commonly. If an individual knows that you are precious in the heart of your community, in the heart of your father, if you don't have a physical father, in the heart of your father, Yah, if a young man or a man, period, if he knows that, then he's going to understand that there are going to be consequences for him not abiding by the structure that was put in place to approach you. So let Torah be a fence around you. Study it so that you know what your rights are and what you are worth. Don't allow yourself to be treated commonly. Because if a man will treat you commonly, he will treat your union with him commonly. And with that, I yield.
Sister Amuna, your closing thoughts?
Hey, excellent show, excellent conversation. Everyone, as Malaka said, continue to seek, continue to search. And someone said earlier about, something to the effect of the recipe for return is humility. We have so many variant doctrines because we lack humility. As the sister said, we all think we know. You know what I mean? And so when you have a whole lot of people who think they know, then you're just going to butt heads. And the reality is the confusion and the contention that exists is a indicator that somebody doesn't know or many bodies don't know. And so humility will go a long way as we come to the table having discussions where not everyone agrees, where people are, like I like to speak about often, are traumatized. We are injured, and to pretend as though that's not the case and, go on with things as we would have them as opposed to how they are, it defeats the purpose. You know what I'm saying? And so, again, thank everybody for tuning in. Join us next week. As we have the conversation, we continue with this conversation, and we have the conversation about the Messianic divide. That's what we're going to talk about, the Messianic divide, talk about, y'all probably going to want to know what that's about, right? But we're going to join us next week, and if you would like to call in, make sure you call in, and we're going to have, we're going to have the hard conversations. So with that, I relinquish the mic. I pray everybody a blessed Erev or night.
Before we close the segment with Ima Naami's final thoughts and a prayer to the Most High, the Holy One of Israel, the Holy One of Creation, I would like to remind the audience that many of the sisters on Under the Palm, Hebrew Women Speak, are published authors and have many, many books and conversations and classes that help to flesh out some of these hard questions and some of the more uncomfortable conversations. Sister Malaka, who is still with us, has recently published a brilliant book. If you want to hear her interview, that's also in the canon, but it's called The Care and Feeding of the Single Mother. And she goes over many of the challenges that Hebrew women or women of faith attempting to put all of the pieces back together after life happens and renew a relationship with the Most High and with themselves, because a healthy mother is the woman who is going to be able to lead and create and maintain a healthy family. We very often like to care about everyone else while we are falling apart, and that's one of the problems that we're having as women. Sister Only Love has her book out also, Prophetic Whirlwind. It's about Black Biblical Destiny, in addition to her courses right now on the ancestresses and the matriarchs of the scriptures. So if you're looking to be able to see yourself in the text, reach out to her also. I know that I have my book coming out, which is about the establishing and reclaiming of biblical femininity, and it goes over the stages of biblical womanhood. Sister Amuna has a number of books. If you listen to our beginning advertisements, one of them is the revisiting of the so-called angry black woman. So check it out. Check out the sisters. Check out the work. Check out the catalog. We have a lot for you. If you didn't get what you were looking for in the last 4 hours, I promise you there's probably something for everyone in the canon. Even Naomi, the floor is yours.
Okay, I just wanted to say also, the reason why you have in the ceremony, which is symbolic of the man standing there waiting for the wife, is because if you look at our culture, and in many cultures, the wife is brought to the husband. Once she leaves her father's house, she then goes on to become the property or the under the auspices of, I can't say property, let me re-rate that word, but she then becomes under the auspices of her husband. While she was in her father's house, her main identity was Bat Shmuel, for instance, or the daughter of Samuel. But when she marries, she becomes the wife of, or Ishet, Shlomo, for instance. So this is why it is that a man, it's symbolic in the marriage ceremony that's held by Westerners that, she walks down the aisle to meet the man. Also, we must know, we have to say that women must know Torah because they are the first teachers. They are the first teachers of children. And if you want to raise a righteous household, since that child is normally in the care of the mother before that child is weaned, this woman must know Torah for herself. She has to know that, and this is not, she doesn't wait to just have it taught to her by her husband. She has to know this Torah too. As B.T. Mayana said, what happens is that you, when the Torah is read every 7 years, it's read to everyone. It's not just the woman. It's not just the men, rather. It's not just the women. It's also it's everybody. So I just wanted to bring those points out. If everybody is ready, I'll begin the evening prayer at this point. Okay. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, Elohei Avatenu Abraham, Yitzchak Yisrael, atah Moshienu, atah Malkin, atah Hakol Lanu, Naya Hamshik Abrakim Lanu, Ki Anaknu Anka Zemadua, where Gam, Salat Lanu Hakol Devarim Ra'im Matsino Lipaneka Yom Yom with Kol Hasbar, Naya Hamshik Abrakim Lanu, Ovakusha Yom Yom with Kol Hasbar. Yahweh, the power of our fathers Abraham, Yitzchak, and Israel, we thank thee for all things and for everything. You are our King, our Savior. You are our all. Save us, O Yah, and forgive us for our sins, the many sins that we commit before thee daily and betimes, not because of our great goodness, O Yah, but because we are thy people. Continue, O Yah, the blessings to us and to all of our families, wherever we may be scattered throughout the length and breadth of this earth. But our desire, O Yah, is to please thee. We ask that you would bless every participant on this line, those who work behind the scenes to make this forum possible for us, all the people that are connected to them in any shape, form, or fashion. We ask that you would spread the blessings out, O Yah, and bless each and every one of them. We ask, O Yah, that you would continue this forum and the other fora that we have, O Yah, that help us to come to some understanding. For we have been away from our law, statutes, and commandments for generations, O Yah, and our desire is to return to thee with our whole hearts in purity and in holiness and in righteousness. Yah, we ask that you would direct our steps. Continue to be with us. Give us wisdom, give us knowledge, but most of all, give us understanding. Let us have between each other, O Yah, love, true love, not the kind of falseness that we've seen in other places, but surely true love that we recognize that we are a family and that we must help each other, we must console each other, we must encourage each other, we must admonish each other when it is necessary. Let us not go after the stubbornness of our own hearts, O Yah, to follow that which we think is good in our own eyes, but let us come into understanding of what may be pleasing unto thee. Therefore, O Yah, we could come to thee with a pure heart, knowing that the blessings are coming. We ask that you would bless all the sick and the shut-in in the house of Israel, all those who are suffering of one thing or another, whether it be physical, emotional, financial, economic, in all the ways that we suffer, O Yah. Be with our people who are in the Beit Doha, those brothers and sisters who may be incarcerated. Be with those of us who are struggling, facing homelessness or homeless, or who is suffering in any way, O Yah. Be with those who are in all the places wherein they tell us. Be with our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren in some instances, O Yah, as they walk along the highways and the byways of these lands of our oppression. Be with them to protect them and put shields around them, O Yah, so that they are safe and they are saved from this catastrophe and disaster, even in their own minds, O Yah, even in the influences of this evil and wicked society. Let them be shielded from that, O Yah, and let them turn to thy law as their solace. O Yah, we thank thee for the beautiful holy season that has just passed, and we ask you to continue to be with us in all our holy celebrations, O Yah, as we try to return to thee. Accept our offerings, whether it be, O Yah, of our lips or whether it be in the ceremonies that we do, just to please thee, O Yah, for we are trying to return unto thee. We are bethinking ourselves, O Yah. Therefore, we ask that you would bless even our efforts. Again, O Yah, please bless us, families, the distant families, the extended families, all the families of Israel, wherever they may be scattered throughout the length and breadth of this earth. And again, O Yah, we know that our mere words are not enough to thank thee. How could we find the words, O Yah, to give glory to thy greatness and thy of the abundance of thy compassion? How could we find the words, O Yah? But we, being finite creatures, we are extending to thee, O Yah, our praise, our honor, our glory to you alone. For you alone, O Yah, are Elohim, and there's none beside thee. Again, O Yah, we thank thee for all things and for everything. We thank thee for the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us and upon all Yisrael, and ask that you would continue those blessings, not so much for our sake, even though we want blessings, O Yah, but for thy great name's sake. And let the day soon come when not only will thy people and thou be glorified, but when the whole earth they know that there is but one Elohim. Again, O Yah, we thank thee for all things and for everything. For those of us who are observing the counting of the Omer, this being the 10th day of the Omer, we say to thee in the Hebrew, we say to thee in Anak Nustamakin La'asur Chirakta Yahweh, Al Sefirat and Haomer, Zayat Yom Asara. We say in English, blessed art thou, Lord, who has given us the law concerning the counting of the Omer. This is day 10. Hallelujah. Amen.
Hallelujah.